Chapter 652. Chapter 652, If He's Safe. Proofreader. Papa Tonks. Ching Cheng, how are you feeling? The cramped room was now crowded with Shui Ruohua and others, all looking worriedly at Chu Ching Cheng. Sitting cross-legged on the bed, the floating light green traces from her body made her body tremble and her face contort in pain. Xian Xiaoyu gnashed his teeth as he cursed. Those repulsive demonic cultivators even resorted to sneak attacks, and heavy-handedly too. We don't even know if Sister Ching Cheng will be all right. She took so many pills and antidotes, but none of them worked. Dana shouted in anger. Everyone gave a nod of worry. Only Elder Yun waved his hand, his voice calm. It's fine. You guys don't need to make such a fuss. I inspected Ching Cheng and found her life wasn't in danger. This is Double Dragon Manor. How can anyone just resort to murder? Just that these days, Ching Cheng will be in suffering and pain. Humph, damn those demonic cultivators, making junior sister Ching Cheng suffer so much. I will never forget this. Xian Xiaoyu gnashed his teeth. The rest were just as angry. Young master, Elder, Xie Tianshang of Sword God Sect has paid a visit. A shout came from outside the house. The first middle three sects. The two looked at each other, then wondered, what is someone from the first middle three sects doing here? While they were wondering, the pained Chu Ching Cheng opened her eyes. She had a faint smile as she said, "Show him in. He is an old friend from Tianyu. He must want to see me." Another old friend? Xian Xiaoyu's mood darkened. Not another shady pursuer, is it? He said, "Junior sister Ching Cheng can't receive guests in her state. It's better if you don't see him." "Wait, young master." Elder Yun spoke first, advising, a simple old acquaintance of Ching Cheng could be sent off, but he has the Sword God Sect behind him. We can't ignore them. It's best to receive him still. Xian Xiaoyu was annoyed by Elder Yun's idea but could only nod, even as his mind was frantic. Xie Tianshang brought Yun Shuang and Yongning along. After greeting Elder Yun, he noticed Chu Ching Cheng sweating and pale. He cupped his hands. "Edifice Lord Chu, it's been a long time. Have you been well? Enough of your crap. Can't you see she isn't well at all?" Dana rolled her eyes as she grumbled. The others fell silent. He only said that in passing, yet you got annoyed so fast. Chu Ching Cheng patted her shoulder. Xie Tianshang chuckled and bowed again. "Forgive me for my crudeness. Edifice Lord Chu, I have witnessed how you got poisoned, and I have brought a secret antidote from my sect that should alleviate the pain." Xie Tianyang presented the vial. Chu Ching Cheng's eyes lit up and she nodded. "Thank you for your kindness, young master Xie. Please, we have the same homeland. There's no need for that." Xie Tianshang smiled and handed it over. Shui Ruohua gave it to Chu Ching Cheng, who was still trembling in pain. Young master Xie, Ching Cheng had taken many pills, but none helped. Could it be that this? It will work. Xie Tianshang smiled with conviction. Chu Ching Cheng smiled as well. "I believe so as well." She opened the vial and took the pill. She remained cross-legged, meditating quietly. The others were still looking at her nervously, but after 15 minutes, something magical happened. Chu Ching Cheng's trembling stopped. Her face became rosy, and the green energy around her slowly faded away. "Young master Xie, your pill is amazing. It actually worked." Dana's eyes lit up. Xie Tianshang simply smiled in reply, while Xian Xiaoyu and Elder Yun were amazed by the middle three sects' power. "I don't know what that poison was, but it was removed so easily. Is this a universal antidote, I wonder?" Chu Ching Cheng revealed the answer soon enough. She opened her eyes and smiled. "Ha ha ha, he's still the same, never wanting to take credit for anything. You knew." "Of course, such a specialized antidote can only come from the poisoner himself." Chu Ching Cheng was filled with happiness. Shui Ruohua asked curiously, "Ching Cheng, you said the antidote belongs to the poisoner. Does that mean it's demon scheming sect's Lu Xie?" "Yes, it's his. Though I bet he wasn't so keen on giving it." Xie Tianshang spoke like she knew everything. Xie Tianshang smiled and nodded. "Edifice Lord Chu, it's like you're him to know him so well. Just as I went to see him, he was beating up the guy to force him to give the antidote. But you know his style. He would never admit to doing such a kind act. He's just as stubborn as always behind that cold face. I've seen him do it too many times in the esoteric debate." Chu Ching Cheng's gaze wandered. Recalling the fond memories, the girls were even more puzzled. Dana asked, "Senior sister, You can't mean that Fan gave you the antidote, can you? He had even been scolding you on stage to be crueler and forget the past. And he only did it because he pitied me, not wanting me to be in danger again. In fact, I was quite happy to hear him say that. As for his coldness, ha ha ha, he's always been like this. Chu Qingcheng did not mind it in the least. The girls were speechless. What is it between these two exactly? It just feels more complicated by the day. Xian Xiaoyu was very hateful right then. The antidote came from him again. He would have surely stopped it if he knew. He could never allow the two to contact each other, even if it meant offending Sword God sect. Xie Tianshang nodded and sighed. Edifice Lord Chu, you have changed over the years. You used to be so forceful and tough. Sometimes you'd be so scared by that arrogant and almighty Fan you'd never see him. Really? Dana looked intrigued at Chu Qingcheng, but she flicked the girl's nose, gave her a deep look, and the girl shied back. Chu Qingcheng sighed. I used to want an explanation from him at all cost, but after I saw how far he went for Ninga, I knew. This man has his own path, and I should let him take it. Ninga. Chu Qingcheng was roused by the voice and looked at Yongning. You know Ninga? Then you aren't Sword God sect disciples either. Xie Tianshang smiled. Let me introduce you. She is Tianyu's princess, Yongning, and this is Tianyu's holy maiden, Yun Shuang. They are both Edifice Lord Chu's main rivals. You should be careful. Yongning and Shuanga were put on the spot. Chu Qingcheng simply smiled at Xie Tianshang. Who'd have thought the great martial fanatic of yesteryear would crack jokes? Then she looked deeply at Yun Shuang. You're Shuanga? Peony Overseer said in her messages that Fan declared in front of everyone that he wanted you. I must say, with your pure look, you sure bear a striking resemblance to Ninga. No, 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 please don't say that. Shuanga panicked, her face going beet red. Then she said quietly, I was only his pawn. Nothing actually happened. A pawn? The girls looked at each other, and anger appeared on their faces. To treat such a nice girl as a pawn, that Fan is a cold bastard. Xian Xiaoyu used this chance to fling dirt. Hear that? That vile demon only knows how to deceive innocent girls. Qingcheng, you must see him for who he is and not buy into his lies. He first had you injured and now sent someone with the antidote. He clearly wants to get to you. You must not let him. I know him far better than you ever will. Chu Qingcheng sneered, her smile icy. Besides, as long as he is safe, I don't care if I become his pawn. What I fear is that he'll abandon me without even finding a use for me. The girls watched Chu Qingcheng in shock. This prideful ice queen wanted to become someone's pawn, forever by his side. Was this still the same cold and determined beauty of before? While Elder Yun shook his head, Xian Xiaoyu was fuming mad because of this. The poor lass had fallen victim to a vile demonic cultivator. Chapter 653, Where the Heart Is. Chapter 653, Where the Heart Is. Proofreader, Papatonks. Qingcheng, wake up. You've been taken in by that demon. Shui Ruohua shook Chu Qingcheng and shouted at her. Chu Qingcheng shook her head. Senior sister, I have been taken in, but that is because I wanted to. Nonsense. How is it logical to let yourself be bewildered? Shui Ruohua did not believe it. Chu Qingcheng gave up, turning to Shuanga and gesturing the two to come over. Shuanga and Yongning tensed in front of their archrival in love. She won't do anything to us, will she? But the two relented at Chu Qingcheng's bright smile that looked like an angel's. Chu Qingcheng smiled. I know you both want to be by his side, but to do this you must understand him. You must also know what happened to Ninga. I heard from the Luo clan that Fan saved her in the end, but she forgot about him, so he let her go. Yongning said. Chu Qingcheng nodded. You know some, but not everything, not what he went through to do it. I was still stubborn back then, forcing him to accept me. Chu Qingcheng began narrating the days of old, from how the Seven Houses conflict started, to Fan's cruel path, of Ninga's death, of Fan's fall to madness, of his struggle and his white hair. She had told them everything, every little detail, well, except the part about her and Fan separating because of it, going to different sects. Whether it was telling her story, or Fan's, she always had that reminiscing smile. It was then that I knew this man was far from dead inside. He is only holding himself back, is all. The path he threads is destined to be cruel and cold. So how could I want to be an obstacle? That's why I left, so that he would never fall into such despair again after what happened to Ninga. If he is safe, I will be content. Chu Qingcheng smiled at Shui Ruohua. I'm so happy to find that he still cares about me. That's why I was glad when he asked senior sister about me. The girls were taken aback. They would never have imagined a cruel and cold demonic cultivator like Shuofan would go through such pain and agony when Ninga woke up. He did not cling to her, but let her go for her own good. Chu Qingcheng had made the same choice then as well. All for him, they all sensed that even by walking different paths, righteous and demonic, they were actually so similar. To them, the factions had no meaning, not when they knew each other completely. The girls instantly had the desire to play matchmaker. Yun Shuang and Yongning lowered their bashful heads, coming to see just how little they knew Shuofan compared to Chu Qingcheng. What right did they have to be with him? Xian Xiaoyu had long since been grinding his teeth in silence. The two had too many deep memories. It was impossible to make her forget about that bastard, so what was left to be said about his chances? I see. So that's why Edifice Lord Chu does not cling to him, because you trust him completely. Xie Tianshang sighed, but by the looks of it, he will always be conflicted. Which is more important, the demonic path or love? This will be his final trial. I only hope he will be able to overcome it quickly and get stronger with it. That way I can also follow my goal by following him forever. The girls raised an eyebrow. That's some bromance. Xie Tianshang noticed their quirky looks and was baffled. What, did I say something wrong? Outside of Mystical Heaven Sect's courtyard, in a remote corner, stood a tall man. Shuofan. Ever since Xie Tianshang entered, he had been standing here for 6 hours. He only wanted to see him come out, proving that Chu Qingcheng was all right. Whoosh. Someone flashed behind him and said in a familiar tone, spreading a strong scent of alcohol, "Ha ha ha, you just can't let her go, can you?" Zhuofan looked back to see the drunk Dan Qingshan smiling at him. "Senior, how are you still here?" Zhuofan asked. Dan Qingshan said, "Hey, I told you, there's no place that can bar me on these lands. I can go wherever I want." "What, you have a problem with people coming from behind?" No, you can do what you wish." Zhuofan's face twitched. Dan Qingshan gave him a long look, then snickered. "Why does love exist in this world? To teach people about the meaning of life. Kid, if you want that lass, just go get her. What's there to be conflicted about?" "Senior, please don't joke. You know as well that this isn't my path." Zhuofan sighed inside. Dan Qingshan nodded. "Oh, quite true. That only means you're fickle. You had 2 girls and now you got a 3rd one. You don't deserve her. What about all those bachelors? Leave some for them." "Senior, don't joke. You know what I mean." Zhuofan's face twitched again, and he sighed. "I walk the demonic path, a dead road filled with cruelty and no emotions. How can I let emotions take me? If I do, it will harm me and especially her. So why bother? The past is a living testament to that." Dan Qingshan gave him a long look, then said, "Then what are you standing around here for? Since you're dead inside, kill all emotions. Standing out here, spying on a girl's window is doing neither of you any good. Senior is right, but after all that has happened, I just can't let go." Zhuofan sighed. "I never owed anyone a favor, I have only had others owe me. The minute I owe someone, it would be very hard to pay it back." Dan Qingshan grinned. "Hehe, a story. I just love stories. Come here and tell me. Maybe I can help you solve your troubles." "Ah, all right. It's my fortune to have senior's care." Zhuofan began narrating the 7 houses conflicts, the esoteric debate, in every detail. "Saving Ninga was my problem. She had nothing to do with it. In the end, she was forced to go to Mystical Heaven Sect so I could save Ninga. I don't even know what kind of conditions she had to accept either. I just don't know when I will ever be able to return the favor. If I don't, then I will never know peace for as long as I live." Zhuofan shook his head. Dan Qingshan turned serious as well. "A strange girl indeed. To save your friend she trapped herself. Now I understand why you regarded Lu Xie's attack as if he attacked your friends. This is a heavy debt. The only way I can see it returned is if you give your heart and soul for her. Hey, senior, I'm a demonic cultivator here. Yeah, a dead and cruel path, yada yada." Dan Qingshan said casually, then turned solemn. Kid, I may not be a demonic cultivator and don't understand your way, but all paths lead to the truth, the Tao. That, at least, I do know. Even on the emotionless and cruel path, you need to feel first before you can squash your emotions. How else can you remove something that wasn't there to begin with? Just like us righteous cultivators who pursue justice, where would justice be if not for evil? How would you know justice without understanding evil? Here's an example. That universal righteous sect, they just love preaching justice left and right, but how many do you think are aware of what that even means? Is justice fighting some demonic cultivators? That's not even breaking the surface. Zhuo Fan pondered, having noticed the wisdom but had yet to unravel its profound meaning. It seemed there was a thick shroud covering his sight, never lifting kid. Dan Qingshan sighed, you have so many girls around you, yet only that lass is a bit special. I thought you were serious about her, but after hearing your story, I'm having second thoughts. Do you feel guilty about her, or is it really love? Zhuo Fan frowned and shook his head, I do not know. Ha ha ha, you're still naive. Dan Qingshan shook his head, then let this old man teach you. Close your eyes and recall that perfect moment of bliss and happiness. Zhuo Fan did so and relaxed, his mind at peace. Through the stream of memories, he only found two that fit the old man's question. I have two peaceful memories. One is in the All-Beast mountain range, with Ninga and Xie Tianyang. Ha ha ha, three people's happiness. Dan Qingshan shook his head, but they are nothing more than your precious friends. That's not the one. There's no such thing as happiness between three people. One always finds himself a third wheel. Ha ha ha, then there's the other, in a rundown house. How many? Dan Qingshan asked too. Man. Woman. Woman. Who is she? Dan Qingshan shouted. Now Zhuo Fan opened his eyes and his face grew grave. Dan Qingshan laughed. That one is where your heart is. Whether or not it is this lass, only your heart knows. Ha ha ha. Dan Qingshan was gone with that last laugh, leaving Zhuo Fan alone and sighing. What am I supposed to do? Chapter 654, Have been around. Chapter 654, Have been around. Proofreader, Papatonks. 3 days, that was how long Zhuo Fan was cooped up in his room, with one leg over the other and not moving a muscle. He had been at this ever since he saw Xie Tianshang coming out of that courtyard, showing that the antidote was effective and Chu Qingcheng had recovered. Today was when the middle three sect stage began, yet, he did not feel like inspecting his enemies, letting Fiend Yang take the disciples to watch the fight. Zhuo Fan frowned deeply. His mind was uncertain, filled with Dan Qingshan's words. How did one remove love when it wasn't even there? This was one question he had never thought about. Maybe he had been on this lonely road of demonic cultivation for so long that he had gotten used to being alone and everything going his way. But heaven played a sick joke on him, bringing him back and tying him down again and again. He could no longer go back to just being a demonic cultivator. Was it heaven's way of taunting him, or maybe a trial? Maybe Yun Xuanji was right. This is my chance to restart my demonic path. It was just that this path was too foreign that he did not know how to proceed. Unlike the breezy demonic path he trod in his previous life, he didn't know if this new path would bring him to the pinnacle of Tao. Just what am I to do? Demonic cultivation emphasized a dead heart. Once emotions sprouted, they would drag him back. But how was one supposed to remove them when one had yet to experience them? This is so messed up. If one took those emotions to train in the demonic path, would these emotions remain pure? Could they be called the feelings one had at first? They were nothing more than a means to an end. But if one fell to emotion, how could one just up and cut them off? If they could be removed so easily, why then still call it true love? Holy shit. If I see it as a trial, that means no path is the right one. Zhuo Fan facepalmed, hesitating if he should insist on going down this road. Better go with the flow and trust where my heart takes me. If it were so, would he ever return to his demonic path? I'm only getting further and further away. Feeling powerless, Zhuo Fan just did not know what to do. He had been in his man cave for these 3 days, struggling with his greatest problem yet. It just goes to show my previous path was too plain. Zhuo Fan, another dark horse showed up. I don't think we'll even get to pass the middle 3 sects fight now. A shout came from outside the courtyard. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes at Fiend Yang's distraught voice, turning over and resuming his conflicting thoughts. Bam! He was in for a rude awakening as Fiend Yang just would not let him, smashing the door open, rushing over, and shaking every bone in his body. Damn brat, don't you know anything besides sleeping? You'll get all the sleep you want when you're dead. We have more important things to worry about right now. What's the hurry? Aren't we challenging the middle three sects tomorrow? Just leave it. Leave your ass. Zhuo Fan's lazy attitude ticked Fiend Yang off. Damn brat, you did not come to see the middle three sect stage. Do you know how it ended? Don't wanna. Why you? Fiend Yang's face twitched in rage. He worked hard to keep it bottled up and prevent it from leaking into his voice. You wouldn't be so relaxed if you had seen what happened at the middle three sect stage. I bet you'd freak out more than me. Sword God sect is a freak of nature. All 10 of its disciples are in the ethereal stage, even your old friend. Zhuo Fan recalled his old friend, then nodded. Oh, right. I never paid him much attention when he came. But now that you mention it, his aura did place him in the ethereal stage. He's always been a martial fanatic, a genius cultivator, but for him to enter the ethereal stage so fast is beyond my expectations. The middle three sects sure are rich. Well, congrats to him. Congrats your sister. You still have the free time to care about someone else. He is our greatest threat. Fiend Yang was itching to smack some sense into this sloppy Zhuo Fan, but he reined it in. Dude, you're our leader. Can't you show some interest? Sword God sect's lineup is as strong as a superior three sects. Do you know how they fared in the matches? They won all of them, both singles and teams. Demon Soul sect and Heaven Trailing sect haven't won once. Zhuo Fan looked at him curiously. That amazing? Yes, that amazing. Fiend Yang sighed. Sword God sect has always been the top middle three sects, but the other two sects weren't this far behind. Even with the superior three sects' dominance over the middle three sects, none of the superior three sects could guarantee such a complete victory. Fiend Yang's worry grew as he sighed. And then there's that gentle sword, he showed great power, but I am sure he didn't go all out. The entire Sword God sect came prepared, then they even gave us taunting looks. They clearly aren't afraid of us, or more particularly, you. They must have something ready for you. That's what worries me the most. Oh, then we should be more careful. Zhuo Fan nodded, finally getting serious. I'll just have to use my foolproof strategy to make losing impossible. Fiend Yang lit up. You have such a thing? Tell me. We don't fight them. We can't lose if we don't fight. Zhuo Fan grinned, or we'll just have to settle being a middle three sect. Fiend Yang's face twitched, and his eyes were burning with a newfound rage he could no longer contain. Zhuo Fan, is that how you don't lose? Shit. Who was it that said we'll challenge the superior three sects? It was you who proclaimed such great design. But now that you met the Sword God sect blocking your path, you shy away? You're nothing more than. With an unbridled yawn, Zhuo Fan walked away as Fiend Yang was in the middle of his rant. He had more pressing things to worry about, like his inner conflict. Other stuff was just extra. He cared even less about some good of the sect motto. Getting them in the middle three sects was enough to fulfill his end of the bargain with Xiaowuyue, superior three sects. Ha ha ha, that's your problem. Fiend Yang felt powerless at Zhuo Fan's disinterest. This young master is so damn stubborn, only doing things based on his mood. If he were in good spirits, he'd be arrogant and fight everything under the sky. If he were in the dumps, he would rather sit back. What a pain in the ass, and there's no way to deal with him. Steward Zhuo, venerable, people from the Heaven Trailing sect have come to see you. Kuei Lang shouted as he entered. Looking at Fiend Yang's red face and Zhuo Fan's laid-back attitude, he knew what had happened. So he bowed and declared. Fiend Yang glanced at Zhuo Fan. We've been here for so long already and haven't paid each other any visits. So why is it today they come to us? Punk, this isn't over. We'll talk when I get back. Fiend Yang slammed his hand hard on Zhuo Fan's shoulder and left in a huff. Zhuo Fan had a faint smile on his face. Kuei Lang did not disturb him and closed the door behind him. Zhuo Fan then recalled something and shouted, Hey, Kuei Lang, come back. I want to ask you something. Steward Zhuo, is there anything you need? Kuei Lang bowed. Zhuo Fan waved his hand, turning dead serious. Kuei Lang, you and your one must have a deep love for each other, right? Why else would you forfeit knowing it could kill you? She keeps me at peace. She chases my fears. All right, I got it. You don't need to mention it. Kuei Lang looked at the sky sorrowfully, but Shuo Fan cut him off right as he started. I just wanted to ask. You know demonic cultivation is emotionless, so why do you do this for? Kuei Lang gave him a long look, then sighed. Steward Shuo, I know the sect has a rule not to fraternize. But love is like a torrent, sweeping anything in its path. I have been around and understand this better than most. Both its sweet and bitter sides, with all in between. All I can say is that I have no regrets. Even when I got cast down to being a laborer. You misunderstood me. This isn't about the sect's rules. I'm talking about the demonic path. Now that you've known love so much, it's hard to progress. Why did you dive in without hesitating? Kuei Lang had a strange look. Steward Shuo, I may be a disciple on the demonic path, but I haven't once thought about it. I only followed what others did and did not break the sect's rules. That is all. When I got close to her, I wasn't thinking about anything, just that we might be exposed and suffer for it. Shuo Fan paused for a moment and nodded. An ordinary cultivator like Kuei Lang was still at the start of the demonic path and probably would never traverse it to reach the Tao. So he didn't consider things too much. Shuo Fan shook his head, feeling foolish. What was I thinking asking him? He doesn't know the difference between a path and a demon. All he does is follow the herd. Because of this, Shuo Fan admired him. Faced with simple-minded choices, one did not have regrets. You can go. I need some peace and quiet. Shuo Fan shooed him. Kuei Lang nodded and bowed before leaving. But just as he was at the door, he said, Steward Shuo, I don't know if it's my place to say this. My insight into the demonic path is way shallower than yours and Elder Yuan's, but there is one area I know for certain. I chose the demonic path over the righteous because of their many restrictions. While I do not know what is on your mind, I get the feeling you are also restricted by yourself. Why must you do so? I have been around, and when it comes to emotions or love, I won't hesitate. Why do you suddenly sound so wise? Shuo Fan shook, and a realization struck him as he gaped at him. Kuei Lang scratched his head. I can never be wiser than Steward Shuo, that I know. All I can say is that I know about feelings. Ha ha ha. Chapter 655. Contradiction. Chapter 655. Contradiction. Proofreader. Papatonks. Freedom of action stood at the base of the demonic path, but one could feel restricted by walking down this path. Such a contradiction. Shuo Fan started, returning to the old unanswered problem plaguing his mind. Damn that Ren Song. How dare he look down on me, like it's beneath him to talk to me. This is bullshit. Just when Shuo Fan was finally alone with his thoughts, a loud voice complaining sounded. A bang followed, and the door was slammed open again. Fiend Yang stomped inside and saw Shuo Fan. You, the Heaven Trailing Sect is asking for you. Go see them. Me? What for? Shuo Fan raised an eyebrow. You're a great venerable, aren't you? You're not enough. Of course I am, but those sons of she-dogs have holes for eyes. Fiend Yang grumbled, then sighed, but they want to meet you specifically, so you must go. They are the head of Tianyu's 3 guardian sects. We have to show our respect. Shuo Fan rolled his eyes and went. Fiend Yang led the way to the front of the courtyard. 4 stood inside, looking around while Gui Hu and the others accompanied them. Your place sure is tiny, but what can you expect from a lower 3 sect? Ha ha ha. A young master in silken robes fanned himself as he laughed. The 2 youths in green around him laughed as well, looking at Gui Hu with derision. The grizzled old man said nothing. Gui Hu was angry, but the 2 fiends left here stopped him and the other disciples from shouting. Shuo Fan saw this and asked Fiend Yang, is Heaven Trailing Sect here to look for trouble? Quite the tone they have. I'm not sure. However, there hasn't been any issue between our sects. Just go there, and you'll know. Fiend Yang rolled his eyes. The 2 approached Gui, whose side bowed before Steward Shuo and stood aside. The 4 instantly set their eyes on him. The young master snapped his fan closed and barked, so you're the dark horse of the lower 3 sects. I saw you when your sect fought with Mystical Heaven Sect. But why did you not participate? I am not sure how tough you are, But you sure know how to be cocky. You know I'm cocky, yet you come at me with that attitude. Are you itching to be pummeled? Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes. That makes two of us. Why have you all come here? And for me in particular? Ha ha ha, we heard you're running rampant and that the sect cherishes you. The venerables must have exaggerated, so we came to see the truth. The young master showed a nasty smile filled with contempt. Zhuo Fan's eyelid twitched. Now he got the gist of what they wanted. They came for a fight. A puny middle three sect wants to waste my time? Ha. The young master took Zhuo Fan's silence for fear and grew more courageous. Ha ha ha, now don't be so nervous. I came with good intentions. I presume you also saw the middle three sect stage today and should already know what to do. I only came here thinking you have been complacent and thought of reminding you how things stand. Demon scheming sect's disciples knew where he was going with this, and their faces fell. Only Zhuo Fan played the fool, sporting the same baffled look. How was the result in today's stage anyway? Please tell me. Zhuo Fan smiled. The young master's face twitched and turned dark. He glared. Are you mocking us when you already know? Humph, we may have had poor results this time in double dragon gatherings, ending up last in the middle three sect stage, but nothing a puny and insignificant lower three sect could ever compare to. Oh, so you're the runt. Afraid you might end up kicked further down, you came to beg for mercy, is that it? Zhuo Fan snickered. Ha ha ha, what a good little doggy, wag your tail for master. But you're missing the right attitude when begging. You'll never get any attention if you keep barking and snarling. Bastard. Two shouts sounded in unison, one from the young master and the other from the elder Hu Tilda. Pressure had come at Zhuo Fan. The elder was furious and shot a palm attack toward his head. Zhuo Fan only squinted, standing his ground like a statue and awaiting this reckless old fool's death. Humph, you've gone senile if you think you can beat me in the fifth layer ethereal stage. Bam! The old man's attack never reached Zhuo Fan. As Fiend Yang blocked the palm, they both staggered 5 steps back before stopping. The old man glared at Fiend Yang, who hurriedly waved his hands. Ha ha ha, Elder Qi, Zhuo Fan hasn't been at the fights today. He doesn't know your sect's situation. He wasn't trying to offend your great sect with his ignorance. Please forgive him. Ignorant? Then what did he mean by his last words? What dog? Elder Qi grunted. Put on the spot. Fiend Yang chuckled. Zhuo Fan had the same stoic face as he said, then why have you come here? We came to warn you to know your place and don't participate in the challenge stage. Just stand aside and watch before you humiliate yourself. The young master mocked Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan sneered, isn't that the same thing? Why would you bother coming here to run your mouths if you aren't scared of us? That only means you're scared. If that is the case, try to at least act like it. Stop with the tough act. I ain't buying it. Why you? The young master was burning with rage and shot his 2 green friends a signal. The two nodded and went for Qi Changlong, Bai Lian, and Lu Xie, the strongest disciples. The trio was on guard, knowing they couldn't be careless against these two, having the same cultivation as them. 3rd layer ethereal stage. But then the two vanished and appeared behind them with a palm attack. Bang tilde. 3 explosions sounded, and Qi Changlong, with the other two, was sent flying, bleeding from their mouths. As for the two in green, they were back in their spots. Zhuo Fan's heart tensed. A combined attack again? Humph, let this be a warning to you. If you dare meet us on stage, I won't care if we're sects from the same empire. We'll slaughter you. The youth flicked his hand, and he left with his friends in green and elder. Qi Changlong and the others barely got to their feet, their eyes filled with hatred. Zhuo Fan calmed down and said, will you let them have it? We'll give them shit. Why the hell would we do what they want anyway? We'll be the middle 3 sect when we throw them back. Fiend Yang snorted. Zhuo Fan, remember this well. That cocky kid is Ren Song. He is sect leader Ren's son. You can teach him any lesson you want, except killing him. As for the rest, you decide. But those two in green are Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin. They train in the mountain and forest's shadow. Their location isn't constant, and they are hard to avoid. They almost scored 2 wins from Sword God sect in today's battles. But they met with gentle sword Wen Dao. If not, just by score alone, they would have Demon Soul Sect beaten and in second place since Demon Soul Sect only had 1 point over them. Thank you, Demon Soul Sect, for bringing him to me. See how I'll kick them out of the middle 3 sects. Zhuo Fan snickered and turned to the rest. Tomorrow, we'll be fighting together. Roar. The others cheered. After taking a round off of fighting, Steward Zhuo was back in action. Hump, cocky brat of Heaven Trailing Sect, your days are numbered. Meanwhile, Ren Song and the other 3 looked smug about their success. Elder Qi, the kid isn't much after all. You went to attack, yet he just stood still like a moron. Song Shan and Song Lin attacked those disciples, and he still didn't help. Our fears were unfounded, ha ha ha. The 4 came to the Demon Scheming Sect to warn them and test the waters. They hadn't seen Zhuo Fan fight and came to probe him. A shame their testing not only ended up fruitless but even managed to yank the enemy's chain into biting them back harder. They failed because of their stupidity. But the biggest irony was they were oblivious of it. Chapter 656, Chu Shen. Chapter 656, Chu Shen. Proofreader, Papa Tonks. But they say that Zhuo Fan obliterated Beast Taming Sect's disciples with 1 fist, even the Elder. It can't be that he could not even react to my palm attack. Elder Qi found it suspicious. Ren Song saw it too but waved off his suspicions. Ha ha ha, no need to think too hard about him, Elder Qi. Zhuo Fan is only at the 3rd layer radiant stage. How strong can he be? The rumors must be exaggerated. Why else would he suddenly sit out when every sect was there to see him? I bet he was scaring the middle 3 sects' disciples into surrendering when it came to fighting him. Only petty people resort to petty tricks. As for Beast Taming Sect's elder's death, Exalted Double Dragons already announced he broke the rules for attacking the guests and was executed by Exalted Heiran. It had nothing to do with that punk. I bet it's just another rumor he instigated to scare others. But not me, yours truly won't fall for it, ha ha ha. Elder Qi regarded Ren Song and nodded in the end. Young master is wise. I must have gotten too old to fall for a kid's trick. The new is replacing the old, ha ha ha. Ren Song was extra full of himself, looking at the 2 youths, Song Shan, Song Lin, in tomorrow's fights. If the others bought it, make sure you kill Zhuo Fan at once to break their spirit and show everyone what a liar he is. Leave the rest for after, alright? Understood, young master. The 2 nodded. Ren Song's smile grew wider. Tomorrow, everyone would see how they fell for the kid's inflated lies. Only I, Ren Song, from Heaven Trailing Sect, saw the truth. Since strength can't beat him, I'll use intelligence, hey. On the morning of the 2nd day, the arena was packed. Even though it was the middle 3 sects challenge stage, the superior 3 sects also showed up. Only this time, they were curious about 2 people. One was the darkest horse of all times, hailing from Demon Scheming Sect, Zhuo Fan. The other was one who they paid even more attention to since not just him but his entire sect was the strongest among the middle 3 sects. Gentle Sword Wen Dao from Sword God Sect, ha ha ha. The ever-dauntless superior 3 sects for thousands of years are now stirred. But the one to climb isn't Demon Scheming Sect, but Sword God Sect. I wonder who is going to take the fall. Wu Qingqiu chuckled, watching the flood of people coming in. Yang Mo was there too. What's the point in asking? The most likely sect to drop is the Universal Righteous Sect. That's what it gets for always being last. Are you so sure it's going to be last this time too? Wu Qingqiu raised an eyebrow. Yang Mo nodded without delay. Of course, it has always been like this. The number 1 spot among the superior 3 sects was always fought between us 2 sects, while the Universal Righteous Sect was just the wheel. I don't mind if they were last, or even if we are last. I just hope that guy gets to fight with me already. That's all I wanted. One can never find peace unless he fights one's destined rival. Yi Lin was bored to death, looking for his target from the audience. Yang Mo asked, "Hey, I feel like sparring with you." "You?" Yi Lin mocked, "No point, now Shu." "You," Yang Mo choked, and Wu Qingqiu laughed. Whoosh. The judge once more made his appearance on stage, bowing before the empty air. "Welcome, Exalted. Welcome, Exalted." The rest of the people bowed as well. Exalted Double Dragons appeared in their seats of honor and gestured for them to be seated. Exalted Heiran spoke, "Begin. Middle 3 sects and lower 3 sects, enter the arena." The judge shouted Sword God Sect, Demon Soul Sect, and Heaven Trailing Sect walked into view. After them came Mystical Heaven Sect and Demon Scheming Sect. Seeing Zhuo Fan in his team's lead, he did not look like he would be sitting back this time. The people lit up, knowing he would be fighting Yang Mo, Wu Qingqiu, and the others were excited as well. Wu Qingqiu really wanted to know what this kid could do to earn his freaky junior brother's high evaluation. Wen Dao grinned at Zhuo Fan, filled with fighting spirit. Zhuo Fan, your reputation precedes you. We'll finally get a glimpse at your skills. I wonder if you'll live up to your name. Fight me, and you'll see. Zhuo Fan rolled his eyes when Dao paused, then nodded, I'll be waiting. Han Yunfeng stared at Zhuo Fan, then finally said, Well met, Zhuo Fan, I am Demon Soul Sect's eldest young Mars Dash. Big young Han. Zhuo Fan cut him off, earning a few snickers from Demon Scheming Sect and Demon Soul Sect. Smiley face, play on the words big equals eldest. Han Yunfeng coughed and said, I am Han Yunfeng. Because of my father's harsh teachings, he only gave us 3 brothers' names after age 5, depending on our strength. Only the strongest earned his name, while the rest didn't have one. That is why only I have one. They are the second son and third son. Oh, your dad sure is cruel. That's a demonic sect's sect leader for you. Zhuo Fan nodded, then a question nagged at him, if the sect leader is cruel to such a degree, does he not feel any love for his sons? The demonic path is filled with mysteries. Han Yunfeng said, I planned to fight you in the Double Dragon Gathering, but I reconsidered. It's unwise to do something you already know you'll fail. So despite some regrets, if you want to challenge us, Demon Soul Sect will have to refuse your invitation. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, giving him another look of admiration. The kid knows when to call it quits, like a true man of ambition does. And he is a sect leader's son too. Quite unlike a certain someone. Zhuo Fan's eyes drifted to Ren Tsong, who had a constant sneer on his face. Fool, he has you believing a lie. You're still falling for his bluff. Zhuo Fan shook his head, scratched his nose, and gave him a moment of silence in tribute. Exalted double dragons saw Zhuo Fan on the scene and were startled. They shared a glance and nodded. They were under the impression Zhuo Fan was too strong this early in the competition, but after watching the middle 3 sect stage, they realized the disciples this time were anything but weak. Without Zhuo Fan's help, Demon Scheming Sect would have nothing to fight with today, effectively going against their fair judging of the sect's potential. Therefore, they allowed Zhuo Fan to fight. Zhuo Fan glanced up and noticed their faint nod, knowing he was free to let loose. He was on a roll. In the lower 3 sect singles, the Mystical Heaven Sect won. In the team matches, the Demon Scheming Sect won. By the Double Dragon Gathering's rules, Mystical Heaven Sect can take the initiative to challenge another sect only in the single matches, while Demon Scheming Sect can only challenge other sects in the team battles. Sects, who will you challenge? The judge turned to the team's elder. Yun bowed. My Mystical Heaven Sect has always been under the Heaven Trailing Sect's guidance. And while we had the fortune to take first place in this time's lower 3 sect stage, we only wish to hold our position and not offend any middle 3 sect. Mystical Heaven Sect refuses to make a challenge. Bootlicker. Everyone there felt like retching at this slick old man's words. His kissing ass at his age? Has he no shame? What Heaven Trailing Sect guiding you? You're just its dog. The girls blushed in shame under the contempt of the crowd. They looked at Elder Yun filled with resentment. We're still a sect. So why must we sell our dignity and become someone else's lapdog? Only Ren Tsong felt like he got even more full of himself, nodding like it was natural. Zhuo Fan found Elder Yun's action admirable. He has no damn ounce of shame, just like me back in the day. Since he turned the loss into a win, Zhuo Fan had noticed Elder Yun's patience and scheming mind, playing the innocent while the play was in disfavor, then striking when the moment was right. He might look like he was ingratiating and shaming himself, but he was, in fact, the Heaven Trailing Sect's most dangerous servant. When the master lost its focus on this dog, the dog would definitely go for the master's throat. That's the definition of flexible. The judge turned to Demon Scheming Sect. Zhuo Fan stepped out before Fiend Yang could speak. Fight, of course. While the Mystical Heaven Sect could only submit, the Demon Scheming Sect had gone beyond this level, ready to kick these rampant middle sects off their throne and take the crown for ruling Tianyu's 3 guardian sects for itself. Chapter 657, Mountain and Forest's Shadow. Chapter 657, Mountain and Forest's Shadow. Proofreader, Papatonks. Zhuo Fan's determined voice echoed in the ears of everyone in the arena, filling them with excitement and expectations. Especially the nation's representatives. The 9 sects in the Western lands had been stuck in their respective rankings for thousands of years. It all became foggy. When exactly was the last time an underdog tried punching above its status? Now, they were witnessing history in the making. Everyone was thrilled and eager for a good show. The teams from every sect had known this was coming and were watching in anticipation. Only Ren Tsong's face fell, glaring at Zhuo Fan like he was an abomination on this earth. A tiny demon scheming sect like you dares to challenge your superiors? Humph, you're going to pay for it. Mark my words. Turning to Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin, Ren Tsong nodded and gave them the signal. In all honesty, they were shaken by the demon scheming sect's team for a good reason. With 6 in the ethereal stage, their side only had himself and the twins, in other words, besides him, in the 2nd layer ethereal stage, and the brothers, in the 3rd layer ethereal stage. The other 7 disciples in the radiant stage could hardly pose a challenge. They were the only 3 who could put up a fight and score a win. So why was it that even though Demon Soul Sect had only Han Yunfeng and the 2nd young Master Han as their sole 2 ethereal stage experts, they were still above them in rank? It was their overall strength that made all the difference. The hope of keeping their name rested entirely on Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin, dealing with 6 ethereal stage experts as such. Striking first and hard to cripple the enemy's morale was a tested tactic through the ages. The Tsong brothers' eyes flickered coldly. Fixing Zhuo Fan in their sights, Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow. His thoughts were mocking them. It's obvious that their target is me. He shook his head and sighed. Ignorance sure is bliss. Since the demon scheming sect has decided to challenge, please enter the Sumeru dimension. First will be lower 3 sect demon scheming sect versus middle 3 sect heaven trailing sect in a team battle. Smiley face. Sumeru is the center of all Buddhist cosmology's physical, metaphysical, and spiritual universes. The judge shouted at the crowd. Then 2 familiar figures appeared on the stage. They were none other than the elders posing as gatekeepers of Double Dragon Manor. Their hands worked through the gestures quickly, and with a bang, they shot their hands forth. The space in front rippled like a curtain about to be lifted. As the ripples took form, the 2 elders grabbed what looked like seams and pulled with all their strength until the veins on their arms bulged outward. Creak tilde. The space was split apart with a heavy sound to reveal a new world. The view presented a magnificent valley with a tall and imposing mountain behind it, covered in a lush and beautiful forest. This world's limits were so vast that one could not even see the edges. Such a considerable expanse could easily accommodate a battle against armies in the hundreds of thousands, not just a measly 20 people. Turning back to the audience, the judge said, "The disciples of the 2 sects are to enter. You are free to fight to your heart's content." Zhuo Fan nodded and was the first to walk forward, but someone gave a taunting snort just before he entered the barrier. Ha ha ha, what a grand world. I bet this will be your first time seeing it since you've never had a team battle. But don't even think about hiding in this vast world. We've been here so many times. We know it better than you. Ren Tsong snickered at Zhuo Fan. Zhuo Fan mocked, "You took the words right out of my mouth. Not like if you hide, it will change anything. It will just be taking a little more time. Come to think of it, I can't remember the last time I played cat and mouse. I should relish the moment. Ha ha ha. We'll see who plays with who here." Ren Tsong just had to have the last word, but those who knew Zhuo Fan's real strength looked at him like he was an idiot. I say, I don't think I've ever seen anyone so quick and excited to die. Life must be tough for him. Zhuo Fan shook his head with a mocking smile as he entered the world. His team snickered and followed right after. Ren Tsong gave the Tsong twins a signal, and the 2 nodded. They shot into the barrier, soon followed by the rest of their team. Soon, everyone entered the fray, leaving behind a faded image from inside to let the audience know how it progressed. Whoosh tilde. Zhuo Fan was the first to appear in a small valley, with demon scheming sect's disciples behind him. Gawking, the spiritual energy in this valley was thick, tens of times better than in Double Dragon Manor. Cultivating here was paradise. Double Dragon Manor is the strongest sect in Western lands to have such a great place. However, Zhuo Fan raised an eyebrow as he looked around in curiosity. The spiritual energy is too thick. There's no way a simple spiritual gathering array can do this. It seems there are world crystals here. Maybe. Zhuo Fan's brow furrowed. In a dark corner of this world, Dan Qingshan's eyes stared over with a flickering gaze. Whoosh tilde. Suddenly, as the demon scheming sect team was stunned by the world around them, two familiar men appeared in front. They were Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin, but they did just keep on coming at Zhuo Fan, who just cocked an eyebrow. They did not attack, passing through him and coming before the 6 ethereal stage experts Mountain and Forest Shadow, the Mountain. Tsong Shan growled, smiley face, Shan equals lit. Mountain. As he finished, his body glowed in an earthly yellow light, his strength surging so much at the same time it felt like he was pushing the heavens aside. The others squinted and cried, hurried to fight back the twin attackers in the form of a combined palm in an instant. The 6 ethereal stage experts' powerful palm attack rolled at the twins like a huge boulder. Tsong Lin's eyes flashed, and he made a sign. Mountain and Forest's Shadow, the forest. Smiley face, Lin equals lit. Forest. Tilde. A green image formed, draping over the two like a curtain, starting with a green glow spreading around just in time to welcome the 6th attack, but instead of pushing through the green image, it only grew weaker as the curtain wiggled and swiveled, nullifying the attack's momentum. Then, with a bounce, it kicked back the 6 palm strikes at the attackers at the same time. The lofty yellow power also fused with it in an instant. A prismatic attack of incredible power came for the 6 people. They were caught off guard by the attack and scattered around like bowling pins, up to 100 meters away. Eyes squinting, the 6 could hardly believe what had happened. They were astounded how 2 ethereal stage experts could push back 6 others while it looked like each side was taking their time in moving to strike just now. It all happened in the blink of an eye. In other words, in just one move. The 6 were defeated by 2 people with the same cultivation as 3 of theirs. Even the audience outside was shocked by this development. The combined attacks of the twins were indeed impressive. They were at an advantage against 6 enemies. Only Sword God Sect and Demon Soul Sect, who fought them, understood how deadly the duo was. No way your average ethereal stage expert could fight them. They could fight as many as 10 opponent. In other words, while in singles, they could get 4 points at most. Their full potential had no limit in a team battle. 4 demon scheming sect to challenge heaven trailing sect to a team battle was entering their domain. Mountain and Forest's Shadow combines reality with illusion, switching between force and flexibility. It is as strong as a relentless assault, crushing anything in its path, and as flexible as a raging torrent blowing them away. The two make a truly rare team. Looking at the screen, Wen Dao squinted and smiled. When we fought the duo, we also seemed to have taken a long time to win. Tianshang, how long do you think it will take your old friend to beat them? Wen Dao asked Xie Tianshang, who turned pensive for a moment before he shook his head. Zhuo Fan is a monster, exceptionally gifted and advancing at unimaginable speeds. I haven't seen him in years, so I cannot tell how strong he has become. 15 minutes at most. The voice startled Wen Dao. Looking over, he saw Demon Soul Sect's Han Yunfeng with his eyebrows raised. Wen Dao chuckled. Brother, would you be kind enough to share what you know? It's not anything of real value anyway. We have fought Zhuo Fan and the Tsong twins before. And even though we lost in both cases, we knew who was the true master among them. Han Yunfeng took a deep breath. Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin used at least 90% of their power when they fought us, while Zhuo Fan less than a third, maybe just a fifth. Every move of his was casual yet unbelievably intricate. If we were to compare, the twins would be a lake while Zhuo Fan the sea. We cannot imagine anyone among the disciples here who can make him go all out. Oh, then I'll make sure to watch closely. If I'm not mistaken, Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin's attack on the 6 ethereal stage experts is a feint while their real target is him. What this brother said is true. Wen Dao's eyes shone like he knew everything, and sure enough, after the 6 were blown away, the twins turned around and went for Zhuo Fan. Chapter 658, Pulverized. Chapter 658, Pulverized. Proofreader, Papatonks. Oh ho, so they're after me, is it? They wanted first to take care of the pesky flies before they came for me, ha ha ha. Despite the two coming at him with murder in their eyes, Zhuo Fan replied to their savage glares with a faint smile for the audience. It was the moment they had all been waiting for when Dao and Han Yunfeng were also eager to see how Zhuo Fan would put the tough and flexible twins in their place. Whoosh tilde. Darting around a few times, the two closed in on Zhuo Fan as their hands weaved gestures mountain and forest shadow, the crushing mountain. Boom. With Zhongshan's shout, a yellow light shot straight for Zhuo Fan like a raging bull. Such destructive power was enough to pulverize even the body of an ethereal stage expert. Mountain and forest's shadow, the spreading forest. Tilde. As green light pervaded and rippled forward, Zhong Lin's eyes flashed, his hands making signs as he followed his brother to strike down Zhuo Fan when Dao's brow shook. The two sure are paranoid about being so cautious around Zhuo Fan. They're using a different attack than they used on the 6. When dealing with the 6 ethereal stage experts, Zhongshan used power to shake the 6 attack's momentum while Zhong Lin used time to store up the attack as we saw. So the 6 palm attacks were all guided under the green ripples, turned back at the attackers. So in truth, the 6 did not lose to the 2's power but their own. Han Yunfeng nodded, but this time, they switched tactics. Zhongshan became more forceful, like an earthquake, while Zhong Lin forewent deflecting attacks for dispersion. If Zhuo Fan came at them with force, his attack would be useless, being redirected away from them. This combination is truly a great blend of power and flexibility, covering attack and defense. When Dao smiled and nodded, it truly is a pesky little tactic, but do you know why they decided on using it? Fear. Since storing power has its limits. Having not seen Zhuo Fan's attack, they at least heard of it. So if the power was truly that overwhelming, Zhong Lin had no way to contain it, leaving them crushed. To make sure that didn't happen, he chose to deflect. Han Yunfeng analyzed when Dao sneered and nodded, right you are. No matter how amazing their skills are, even they pale against relentless force. It depends on Zhuo Fan's punch and how strong it is. Will he withstand Zhongshan's brutal attack after Zhong Lin's deflection? By the way, you've seen Zhuo Fan's punch, so what do you think of it? See for yourself. The Han brothers returned to the screen, stingy. When Dao shrugged and kept watching the events unfolding. Zhongshan and Zhong Lin were right in Zhuo Fan's face. The mighty yellow power was seconds away from blasting him, yet Zhuo Fan wasn't doing anything. Just standing there. The audience was at the edge of their seats for what was about to happen to Zhuo Fan. Will the legend of the darkest horse in history fizzle out here and now? The Zhong twins sneered, I knew it, the punk was nothing but talk all along. His nothing. We are almost upon him, about to rob his life, yet he doesn't do anything. This proves the rumors were exaggerated. He's either scared to death or can't even react. He's no expert. What expert would just let himself be pushed in a corner anyway? While the two were giggling to themselves for having this in the bag, a soft buzzing came, and the two's scalps tingled for some odd reason. Tilde. The earth started disintegrating 100 meters around Zhuo Fan from the high-frequency vibrations. Zhongshan's yellow attack was just about to strike a pity disintegrated the next moment into nothing at the same time. Zhong Lin's green light curtain started sporting black lines, running through it like a spiderweb before it collapsed. The two's eyes shook, and their hearts fell. They jumped back at once, looking at the still unmoving Zhuo Fan in shock, and they watched as the rest of their attacks crumbled before their eyes. Even before they got out of the 100-meter range, it had vanished. Moreover, two wails of pain pierced the skies as, in that instant, their attacks fell through. They were also just one moment too late to clear the area. One hand from each of them was chipped away at high speeds before they also vanished. All that was left behind was blood dripping from the stumps, a testament to the vibration's power. What the hell was that? Tilde. Watching how everything in 100 meters of Zhuo Fan was pulverized, the audience gasped at the spectacle. When Dao and company were even bug-eyed, even exalted Double Dragon's eyes twitched in amazement. Just what is this astonishing martial art? It is beyond belief. Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed with 4 golden halos, and his mouth perked into a condescending smile. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage, absolute domain, Space Crusher. The twins looked at each other, and their gazes hardened. Zhuo Fan had been keeping to himself to a ridiculous degree. Who the hell is he? It's not just about strength. Just how the hell does he know such baffling skills? Glossing over their obvious shock, Zhuo Fan closed one eye and stopped the attack. His mouth traced a wide, bright smile as he jumped straight for the two. The twins thought about running away. Zhuo Fan's left hand turned into a dragon claw as it pursued Song Lin, while his right eye flashed golden twice with void annihilation, aiming for Song Shan. Song Lin felt a chill down his spine. He's not just what the rumors painted him, but far more terrifying. They had no chance whatsoever, though it was a bit late for regrets. They could only choke on it since they bit more than they could chew. Helpless, Song Lin had no other choice than to fight, shouting, "Mountain and forest shadow, the spreading forest." Tilde. Another ripple traveled from Song Lin with a green hue wraith-style second move, ghostly dragon claw. Zhuo Fan snickered and went straight for it with a grab. However, ghostly dragon claw's power faded just as the ripple grew unstable. How amusing. Zhuo Fan smiled and let purple lightning flicker through the claw. As the purple lightning passed, the already strong claw gained an edge crash. With a huge bang, the green light around Song Lin's body was decimated, along with Song Lin's frail body. Blood splattered everywhere, gore squelching as it touched the ground. Zhuo Fan's claw had turned a human being in a shower of blood and giblets. The audience gasped and cried. Yi Lin's eyes squinted, piqued by the appearance of purple lightning. I was right, after all. That's. Zhuo Fan stepped again with one down and closed in on Song Shan. Watching his brother reduced to fertilizer, Song Shan was scared out of his mind. But even if he ran, could he escape the likes of Zhuo Fan? Seeing Zhuo Fan upon him, he could only stake it all. Mountain and forest's shadow, the crushing mountain. Boom. He pushed out both his palms as he shouted. With a loud rumble, the yellow power rolled forward, like a 1,000-meter-tall mountain, straight for Zhuo Fan. Such a blow would render anyone's body to a pulp. A shame he wasn't dealing with just anyone in the face of Zhuo Fan and his soaring Qilin arm, famed through the world for its unmatched strength. He might as well be attacking with a toothpick. Zhuo Fan's mouth split into a nasty grin. His right hand flashed as he punched. Boom. The earth-shaking sound came from Zhuo Fan's sacred arm striking the yellow power the same way towering waves fell upon a sand castle. It crushed it to harmless motes of light. What came next was a relentless gale that ripped at Song Shan's body. His figure was gone and replaced with a red cloud, raining down thick crimson droplets into red rivulets. It was clear to all this was the miserable ending. Chapter 659, Rain Check. Chapter 659, Rain Check. Proofreader. Papatonks. The once excited audience gawked. With how many of them were seeing Zhuo Fan's handiwork for the first time, they were still reeling over how such a monster existed. His power was out of this world. Everyone bore testament to the twins' strength last time. They were no less than the level of the superior three-sex disciples that proved to be a thorn in many of the middle three-sex disciples' sides. Yet these brave and bright geniuses were squashed to nothing at Zhuo Fan's hands with the lightest of actions, and in the most horrendous way possible. Zhuo Fan's display had everyone shaking in their seats. Even those that witnessed Zhuo Fan's punch were still unnerved. That strike was unintended and random, while in this fight, the strikes were done with purpose and resolve. The constant show of baffling martial arts had left the people thrilled. Every time I see him, it feels like he's a new man, a new abomination. It puts all my effort into cultivation over the years to shame. Even if I were to fight him, I still can't beat him. Xie Tianshang shook his head and sighed when Dao's face twitched. Tianshang, what the hell had your friend been eating to end up like this? He's inhuman. And you, Han Yunfeng, didn't you say he's going to take 15 minutes against the twins? He barely took a second. How should I know? Han Yunfeng rolled his eyes. I told you he's terrifying. I bet the last punch wasn't even his all. I just can't imagine where all his strength ends. How could a freak like him be allowed in the Double Dragon gathering anyway? How are we supposed to compete with that? Wen Dao eyed him and gave a firm nod of approval. Then his face fell as he spoke bitterly. For crying out loud. I had confidence that many of my plans to deal with the demon scheming sect would work. But how the hell will any of them work when they have such a freak? Humph, ignorance is bliss. That so-called confidence was nothing but blind faith. Han Yunfeng mocked when Dao glared, then sighed. Others had it worse. Heaven Trailing Sect's elder thought the challenge match with demon scheming sect would still go to them. Now though, Victory was the last thing on his mind. His team was going to be slaughtered. That valley was a hellscape, fraught with one certain and imminent danger that would pull everyone in, Zhuofan, and to make matters worse, their leader Rendsong is completely oblivious to it. And that was the truth of it. In that world, Rendsong had warned the twins to go for Zhuofan from the start rather than picking up the leftovers from Demon Scheming Sect. However, the fight was already over. This mighty young Master Ren and the other disciple had not received any message either, a testament to how brief the fight was. Elder Qi was most worried that the young master was still stubbornly holding on to his belief that the enemy was showboating, that's suicide. Elder Qi felt like crying, his heart in a mess. The rumors were true, if not failing to live up to his power. The punk is a terrifying existence. Wu Qingqiu took a deep breath and sighed, his reputation precedes him. Zhuofan is outstanding. There might not even be many from the superior three sects who can take the twins on, yet this guy did it like nothing. You haven't seen anything yet. Wait till he becomes a true savage. That's when you'll see his power. Yang Mo recalled his miserable experience and sighed, we didn't even get to see his soul yet. Wu Qingqiu cried, soul? He's in the radiant stage and already formed his soul? Oh please. How the hell is he supposed to fight an ethereal stage expert if he didn't have a soul formed? I figured he has some defensive soul treasure on him. That and his incredibly strong body are what helped him score wins. At least, that's how it looked until now. But if he has a soul formed, Wu Qingqiu's face was heavy. Glancing over, Yang Mo sighed, here's a newsflash for you. He doesn't just have a soul form, but it is also something incredible. How do you know? Did you see it? Wu Qingqiu looked at him hard. He nodded, then shook his head. What I mean is, I sort of saw it and didn't. At that time, he only half released it. Yet that was enough to almost take my life. If not for the girl in his arms stopping him, I wouldn't be here talking to you. You fought him and lost. Wu Qingqiu gasped. He knew just how strong Yang Mo was, while not better than him, of course, but he was a true expert in the Western lands. The best genius in Western lands could beat him, no problem, but getting him to leave his life was another matter. It was this expert that almost got culled by Zhuofan's power. Just what level is this guy at anyway? Wu Qingqiu turned a startled face at Yi Lin. Junior brother, your opponent is freakishly strong. Of course. How else is he to match me? Yi Lin grinned excitedly. I told you, none of you are worthy of fighting him except me. Because we are destined rivals, hey. Wu Qingqiu gave him a long look, then nodded. Meanwhile, Zhuofan finished dealing with two flies and started looking around with a devious smile. Zhuofan's eye twitched and charged forward. He clawed at some bush and grabbed a mote of green. Tsong Lin's soul. Zhuofan's right eye flashed golden again, and the mote vanished. Then he disappeared again, appearing high on a tree's branch. He swiped his hand and caught a yellow mote. This time it was Tsong Shan's soul. With one last disappearing act, Zhuofan was back to his original spot, but this time with an extra nasty grin on his lips as he said to the two motes in his hands. Go ahead, run. Did you think I didn't see you slipping away when your bodies were pulverized? And you, Tsong Shan, what the hell were you doing perched up there under a bird's butt? Are you trying to become a chick in your next life? Demon Scheming Sect's disciples snickered over. The two souls were shaking in fear. You picked the wrong guy to mess with this time. You up and challenged Steward Shuo and got what's coming to you. Ha ha ha. Kuei Lang patted the two souls and mocked them. The others laughed along. The Tsong twins were ashamed, crying out in anger. You destroyed our bodies, and now you dare kill us. We are from the Heaven Trailing Sect, the head of Tianyu's Three Guardian Sect. Head my ass. When we kick you down a notch, we'll be the head. Ha ha ha. Zhuofan grabbed the two and knocked them into each other so hard they saw stars. The rest were laughing even harder now. In flashes of light, Rendsong and his gang entered the stage. Seeing the Demon Scheming Sect team laughing and joking, Rendsong looked around, puzzled. Where are Tsong Shan and Tsong Lin? Did they get sent to a different area? The plan was to go after Zhuofan to catch him off guard the minute they got here. But now, there was no sight of them, and the chance was lost. As for the two in question being defeated, that never crossed his mind. He wasn't one to entertain such flights of fancies. The two managed to make it hard against all other middle three sects, so how would they get done in a flash? But the cruel reality was he couldn't even register what was before him. He just had to mess with the wrong person. Are you thinking they should have been on me the moment they came here? Zhuo Fan mocked. Ren Tsung's brow shook, and he looked at Zhuo Fan incredulously. How does he know that? Zhuo Fan grinned as if he had read his mind, then shook his head as he extended his palms holding the two motes. Because they did it just now. A shame they lost, ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan squeezed, and under Ren Tsung's shocked eyes, he watched as the two cried their last and scattered into the air. From now on, the head of Qianyu's 3 guardian sects has changed. Zhuo Fan squinted. Qi Changlong and the others behind him snickered, strutting for Ren Tsung's team with taunts and jeers. From now on, Qianyu's first guardian sect was taking a rain check. Chapter 660, Sacred Mine. Chapter 660, Sacred Mine. Proofreader, Papatonks. Ren Tsung squinted as he jerked in fright. It blew his mind, and all his understanding, that Tsung Shan and Tsung Lin should charge one enemy only to be squeezed to nothing in the enemy's hands. Such a display left him crushed. And with his hopes gone, that left nothing but fear. When he looked at Zhuo Fan, he never saw Zhuo Fan in action, but this was enough to get it through his thick skull that the rumors were true enough to get him killed. He is a monster I can't mess with. A shame he had done it already. However, he had more present and serious matters to worry about, like the ever-approaching Qi Changlong and his friends with cold smiles. Now, even without Zhuo Fan's help, the 6 ethereal stage experts against the only ethereal stage expert on his side, him, and damn radiant stage experts. The rest could do nothing to curb the fear they all felt. Ren Tsung was sweating buckets, his mouth fell, and he teared up. His teammates looked at their young master with pleading gazes, even as they knew their young master was in the same boat as them. Qi Changlong was coming down on them with a savage grin, snapping his finger joints as he made fists. Ren Tsung kept staggering away, filled with sweat. Young Master Ren, who is the cat and who is the mouse, I wonder? Zhuo Fan snickered. Ren Tsung gnashed his teeth and turned red in anger. The punk is mocking me. Zhuo Fan shook his head and smiled. That's right, I'm here to shame you, but on account of your exquisite manner yesterday, I am inclined to give you a chance. In a team battle, the rule says that the door outside will open after 6 hours, and the fight finishes regardless of the outcome. So didn't you say you're quite familiar with the area? So be a good mouse and scurry along for a hidey hole. And if we find you all in the next 6 hours, then it's only right that the cat gets to eat its prize, ha ha ha. Demon scheming sect's disciples cracked up, filled with contempt for them. Steward Zhuo wanted to toy with them to their last breath. He's the same as Yang Mo. The audience chuckled and sighed. Such is the way of demonic cultivators. All demonic cultivators are the same, I see. They just love making a show out of their savagery. Ha ha ha. When Dao shook his head, Han Yunfeng glanced over and said, this is called absolute power. You think you'll see something like this in an equal match? True cruelty only shows when one side has an overwhelming advantage. Maybe Zhuo Fan is telling the others through this act that they shouldn't mess with them no matter how strong they are. When Dao sighed, Han Yunfeng grinned. Then will you still stand in his way? Regardless of the outcome, I would be happy to know I could fight such an expert. Han Yunfeng's heart shook and fell silent when Dao's words cut deep. Fighting a losing battle was unwise. From the sect's standpoint, retreat was welcomed against an impossible adversary. However, to a cultivator whose nature was to go against the natural order, they should fight regardless of adversity and brave any dangers. Having been close to the leadership of a sect, he had forgotten this simple truth, the basic nature of a cultivator. If he balked in fear against this mighty opponent, how would he progress in his cultivation? Suddenly, his eyes focused and flicked in Zhuo Fan's direction. It seems I was mistaken. When Dao eyed him and nodded with a smile, that's how a demonic sect's young master should be. 10, 9, 8, Zhuo Fan lifted his arm and started the countdown. Kuei Lang and company grinned in Ren Tsung's direction, waiting for them to flee like rats. I have never been more insulted in my entire life. Yet when it came to choosing between dignity and life, Ren Tsung could only think of himself as he ran like the wind under the audience's ridicule. The other disciples thought even less, going after their young master like good gophers. 3, 2, 1. Zhuo Fan's counting was slow, but it ended either way quickly. Kuei Lang and the others grinned as they began the hunt. They sure loved playing around at another's expense. But just as they started, Zhuo Fan's smirk started. People, let's all relish the game. They looked at each other and nodded before vanishing. Zhuo Fan smiled and was gone as well. The little valley regained its tranquility once the game of cat and mouse began. The two gatekeepers closed their eyes, changing the screen outside the dimension by switching through the monitoring arrays already set up inside in search of any movement. It didn't take long for a heaven-trailing sect disciple to appear. Frantic in his run for his life, he barely made a few steps as Lu Xie came from behind. He pointed, and green light shot his ankle. Then thick green energy spread from his heel to the rest of his body. Hi. Run, kiddie, run. The faster you go, the faster the poison spreads. And when it reaches your innards, you're done for. Lu Xie cackled. The guy felt his heart beating out of his chest, and he was so scared he was close to soiling himself. Lu Xie, however, was enjoying the moment of tormenting the poor devil. Noticing the green energy was almost at his thigh, he could no longer tarry. He instantly chopped his leg off and started jumping around in an attempt to flee. Lu Xie sneered and shot another green light on the other leg. He was again forced to choose between his leg and his life. The guy was horrified and crying in indignity while Lu Xie was taking his sweet time to see what he'd decide, to relish in his sweet torment. It took only half an hour for the guy to be without arms and legs. Finally, Lu Xie cackled one last time and wiggled over. The audience sighed in sorrow. Exalted double dragons did the same, but out of boredom such an event was happening all over the place in that world. This was no longer a team battle but a one-sided slaughter. Just how on earth did Heaven Trailing Sect offend the Demon Scheming Sect to incur such cruel revenge? Holding their foreheads, the two Exalted no longer bothered to watch and closed their eyes. However, none noticed that no matter how the view changed, Zhuo Fan was nowhere to be seen among the torches. He had been gone ever since the hunt began. It was as if he was no longer in there. Whoosh tilde. Deep in the forest, a figure appeared. The proud Zhuo turned around and nodded. Good, this must be the blind spot in the monitoring arrays. Then his hand held a sparkling and pure crystal, a sacred stone. The black energy curled from his hand around the sacred stone and slowly dissolved it. Zhuo Fan focused on the drifting spiritual energy, following its every shift. Then his eyes lit up in glee. Over there. He was gone once more. This time, Zhuo Fan was sidestepping the monitoring arrays while following the flow of spiritual energy from the sacred stone until he arrived before an unending mountain. The spiritual energy was so thick here it felt like the previous valley could not compare, to the point that the entire mountain range was like a bright azure dragon as it emitted spiritual energy. I knew it. This is a Western Lands sacred mine. Who knew they'd sealed it up in here? Watching the distant mountain range, his heart shivered. The instant he got here, he was convinced that this place had to have a sacred mine, but since this was someone else's home, it was closely monitored. Looking for their treasury under Double Dragon Manor's nose was asking for the noose, so the ingenious Zhuo Fan used Heaven Trailing Sect's hunt to cover his tracks and let him inspect in peace. That was why he kept telling the disciples to take it real slow, to give him time to have his share of fun. Now that he was here, his doubts were cleared. Chapter 661. Sacred Weapon. Chapter 661. Sacred Weapon. Proofreader. Papatonks. From what Xie Wuyue said, the 5 lands' sacred mines could only be exploited at the edges. Most of their ores are being protected by a strong array that can only be placed by the likes of experts from the sacred domain. Who then, besides him, blowing himself up and ending up in the mortal domain, would fall so low? Moreover, the path to descend from the sacred domain was closed shut. Even a saint would find it hard to breach it, to say nothing of the others. In that case, the answer couldn't be more obvious. Squinting, Zhuo Fan pondered, this must be related to the 5 sacred beasts. Kuanping had him look for the other sacred beasts while keeping young Sanzi hostage. That has to be it. Zhuo Fan looked around the place, then his brow shook. The sacred mine is so important that there are tens of monitoring arrays just 100 meters from it. Not to mention they are all discreetly set up. A shame you guys met me. When it comes to arrays, yours truly is your great-great-great ancestor, Humph. Grinning, Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed golden. Besides, you should now be drawn to watching Lu Xie and the others' actions and have no attention to spare on me. Hey. Whoosh tilde. With a snicker, Zhuo Fan vanished. He kept showing up and disappearing all over the mountain range, but all were spots where the monitoring arrays could not reach. Whoosh. Zhuo Fan finally stopped before the dimly lit mouth of a cave as he entered. He did not trigger one of the hundreds of monitoring arrays outside. He sighed in relief. Zhuo Fan looked at the cave's walls filled with sparkling crystals shining in a faint light. The sheer density of the spiritual energy was so great it gave him goosebumps. His eyes lit up at the sight. This was the entrance to the sacred mine, and these crystals were the sacred stones the vein formed. All sacred mines had to be formed on top of a world array to condense such a high concentration of sacred stones. That meant that apart from the sacred array, the sacred mine was not suitable for setting up other arrays, or it would end up disturbed by the natural power of the world. Thus, Zhuo Fan was not worried there might be any monitoring or defensive arrays here. Unless, of course, they could set up sacred arrays, which was an impossibility in the mortal domain. So Zhuo Fan just waltzed in curiously. He wanted to see who this expert was and what kind of an array he set up to protect the sacred mine. He barely took a few steps, and an ear-piercing ringing came. His eyes shook, and Zhuo Fan stopped. What's going on? Is there someone inside? Carefully walking deeper, Zhuo Fan noticed that the ringing intensified. When he reached the end, he was stumped. A 2-meter-long sword covered in a prismatic haze floated just above the cave floor. It would sometimes shake and release a mesmerizing ringing sound. The rich spiritual energy from the sacred stones converged on the longsword like a newborn pup growing on the sweet milk. The longsword was also sustained under the sacred stone's care. Is that a sacred weapon? Zhuo Fan squinted and cried out. By the looks of it, it's even a 6th-grade sacred weapon, the strongest of the sacred domain. Above the 12th-grade spiritual weapons were the sacred weapons. Only a person from beyond the mortal domain could unleash this weapon's true might. And since sacred stones were needed to refine them, making such beauties was an extremely complicated process. They were a rarity, even in the sacred domain. At least, when Zhuo Fan was the grand leader of the 8 emperors, he could only refine a 3rd-grade sacred weapon, and that was only in theory as well, having never actually done it. The materials weren't available everywhere either. Just going by the requirements of the sacred stone alone, he did not know just how many lands of the Shun clan he had to cheat and how difficult it was to get them off his tail in the process. He never expected the tiny mortal domain to contain such a beauty, the legendary 6th-grade sacred weapon. Such a wonder made his little heart flutter. He had plenty of sacred stones on hand but no sacred weapon. Since he stumbled onto one, was he just going to pass by? Zhuo Fan grinned and walked towards it. Ha ha ha, I know that all sacred weapons have a conscience, so you must be able to understand me. Look, this place is so damp and gloomy, with no sunlight ever getting in. Aren't you bored sitting here all day, every day? Why not join me out to play? The sword understood Zhuo Fan's intention and shook faintly before emitting a sharp light. Wait. Zhuo Fan jumped back at once and waved his hands. I mean no harm and don't intend to take you for myself. I know sacred weapons need sacred stones to shine and replenish their energy. I have plenty of them with me. If you come with me, you get to soar in the endless sky as we travel the world and have your fill of all you can eat. I'll make sure to make you content. Zhuo Fan was like an uncle swindling children. He showed such an obscene smile too. His hand flashed and took out a sacred stone. See, I'm not lying. I can replenish your energy just as well in my ring. The only difference is that you can also come out to stretch your legs. Would you like to check my ring for yourself? If you don't like it, you're free to come out. You're a sacred weapon, and I can't lock you up. Zhuo Fan tentatively showed his thunder ring in enticement. The long sword looked hesitant. It hummed and went still. Zhuo Fan knew he almost had it and was bursting with excitement. Holy hell, I'm about to have the strongest sacred weapon. This is both of my life's dreams come true. His trip to Double Dragon Gathering had paid off hundreds of times over. Even if he weren't forced by Xie Wu's task or Kuanpeng's threat, he'd have come here ages ago for this sweet trinket. However, just as Zhuo Fan was about to hoodwink the sacred weapon, a blue flame flared up from his thunder ring at the same time. Zhuo Fan's forehead sported the same azure flame, his body crackled with purple lightning, and his right arm flashed crimson. What's going on? Startled, Zhuo Fan was stumped. A chilling bloodthirst swept the cave, and Zhuo Fan's heart tensed as he looked incredulously at the long sword. What just happened? We were getting to the good part, so why the sudden hostilities? He didn't have time to think as the long sword ruthlessly attacked him. Whoosh! With a cold glint, killing intent shot out of the longsword and reached Zhuo Fan in a blink. Zhuo Fan squinted and hurriedly raised his right to block it. The most astonishing thing happened. Zhuo Fan's invincible Qilin arm offered no resistance to the sword's attack. In a flash, gurgling blood flowed out of it, but Zhuo Fan was too stunned to realize it. How can this be? That was just sword energy, yet it pierced through a sacred beast's body. Just what on earth is a 6th-grade sacred weapon made of to be so strong? Whoosh! However, he had no time to ponder as the sword shook and rushed at Zhuo Fan, its blade shining in a dazzling light. Zhuo Fan was horrified. For the first time, Zhuo Fan was scared to death. Its sword energy was enough to pierce a sacred beast's body. So now that it came for him, how would he stop it? It was going to make mincemeat out of him. Zhuo Fan panicked, not knowing what to do. Just as the long sword reached him, he was hit by a stroke of genius. Since you can't beat them, flee. His right eye flashed golden, and Zhuo Fan had moved 100 meters away in a blink. As for the long sword, it lost its target and searched for him, unable to find him. When Zhuo Fan appeared again, the sword closed in on him in a blink. He cried out on the inside but did not dare to leave the cave, or those monitoring arrays would spot him. Zhuo Fan had no choice but to stay in this narrow cave and dodge the sword's attacks. This couldn't go on forever, since his yuan qi would run out if he kept this up. At the same time, the sword would keep replenishing its stores in this sacred mine. It could go on forever. A fight for attrition was his worst gamble. For God's sake, I'll make another tunnel since there's no other path. I could use it to escape the monitoring arrays and take to the skies. With that thought in mind, Zhuo Fan dodged one more time, and his right eye flashed with 2 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void's 2nd stage, Void Annihilation. Bam! The space shook as the attack struck the cave wall, yet it bounced back. All the attack did was give the whole mountain range a good shake. Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes and panicked. Does that mean that since this is a sacred mine, breaking the space is still not enough to break the layers of sacred stones? But that wasn't the end of his shock. The long sword was in front of him once more. Chapter 662, Subdued. Chapter 662, Subdued. Proofreader. Papatonks. Damn. Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes and paled as his scalp went numb. At this very moment, the long sword was already on top of him, just a hair's breadth away. With Void Annihilation fizzling out, he had no more time to employ shift. His only fate was to be skewered to death. Well, there was one option left, to use the Void Annihilation that had yet to disperse and root the long sword, like that's ever going to happen. Regardless of Void Annihilation's strength, it couldn't compare to the Qilin arm. If it got pierced by this thing's sword energy alone, how could a mere Void Annihilation block the longsword's attack? Zhuo Fan was at the end of the road, however, watching the long sword just about to tear him a new one. Zhuo Fan could only grit his teeth and risk it all. It's worth a shot, even if it's for nothing. Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed golden again. Divine Eye of the Void's 2nd stage, Void Annihilation. Zhuo Fan's right eye shot out a spatial ripple that collided with the longsword. Clang. It was like it hit metal. The longsword was pushed back by the blow. It flipped twice in midair before plunging into the wall filled with sacred stones. Zhuo Fan was stunned. Then he looked at his right arm, still bleeding heavily. With a flick of his hand, he smashed a big hole in the wall next to him. Sure enough, the Qilin arm is way stronger than Void Annihilation. So why couldn't it defend against this sword while the latter could? Crack. As he was sinking into his thoughts, the cracking from the wall jerked him away. The long sword twisted around in the wall and was fricking wiggling out of the stone and charging for Zhuo Fan one more time. Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes, his face solemn. He no longer hesitated to use Void Annihilation on the spot. Bam! The sword was spun through the air again on impact. With a deep frown, Zhuo Fan was curious why the puny Void Annihilation succeeded where his prized Qilin arm failed. Maybe they're naturally opposites. Zhuo Fan pondered over some more, and a realization struck him. Since Void Annihilation could handle it, what about the other skills of Divine Eye of the Void? Whoosh. The long sword was back again with a ferocious and far more savage attack than before. Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes, and this time Zhuo Fan no longer panicked. He was like an old fox biding his time for his prey to fall into his trap. Finally, the long sword was within 100 meters, and Zhuo Fan's right eye flashed golden 4 times. Divine Eye of the Void's 4th stage, Space Crusher. Tilde. The whole cave shook, and the sacred stones littering the walls fell to the ground. But that was a mere jiggle, unlike how it usually behaved outside, where it pulverized everything. It shows that a sacred mine is tough beyond reason. Zhuo Fan nodded inside, then returned his attention to the incoming long sword. It was also shaking all over as it stopped approaching. All it could do was tremble and shake in the air. It couldn't even get near Zhuo Fan to strike. Just as I thought, Divine Eye of the Void can restrain the sacred weapon. Zhuo Fan's eyes narrowed, and his right eye flashed again in 3 golden halos. Divine Eye of the Void 3rd stage, Mirage World. Tilde. Suddenly, the vibrations stopped. Only the long sword was enveloped in invisible fluctuations, preventing it from stabilizing itself. It spun around in place, unable to make heads or tails of what was happening around it. Since you don't want to work with me and even tried killing me, there's no need for you to have consciousness. Zhuo Fan's eyes flashed with killing intent. He knew fully well that sacred weapons had a mind of their own, and this one was no different, housing a spirit that controlled it. Now he and the sword spirit were at odds. He would have to crush the spirit if he wanted to obtain the sword's recognition. Therefore, he was using illusions to control the sword spirit and calm it down. If a sacred weapon lost its sword spirit, its quality would fall sharply. He had to put another spirit in its place. Zhuo Fan looked around, pensive. A flash of red came out of his body and sank into the long sword. Zhuo Fan started making signs while shouting, demon transformation art, turning the sword as one's own body, sword spirit renewal. Whoosh tilde. Black tendrils of energy flashed over the long sword along with Blood Infant's creepy snicker. A cry of fear echoed out of the sword. It was the original sword spirit, however, because Zhuo Fan suppressed its divine sense with Mirage World. It had no way to fight back even if it wanted to. As Zhuo Fan used the demon transformation art along with the void annihilation, the sword spirit slowly disintegrated, becoming nourishment for the new sword spirit. Tilde. With a light ripple, the hovering long sword started trembling, and its previous glossy and impeccable blade now slowly took on a black color while crimson stripes spread over its surface, making it let out a sinister aura. Stopping Mirage World, Zhuo Fan beckoned, and the sword fell into his hand. Looking closely at it, Zhuo Fan smiled in satisfaction. Henceforth, the world has lost a 6th grade sacred weapon, but it has gained a sacred demonic sword. Little guy, you shall now be the spirit of this sword and my blood infant, the strongest 6th grade sacred demonic sword of the sacred domain. How awesome is that? How annoying I can't unleash even a fraction of what you're capable of, not as I am now at least. The sword shook, then it flew from Zhuo Fan's grip. It spiraled in the air, and Blood Infant appeared in a flash of light. Then Blood Infant shot into Zhuo Fan's body without so much as a peep. Zhuo Fan started, then he shook his head. Little guy, are you trying to say that even if I can't use the sword, you're still one with me? Blood Infant simply rested in Zhuo Fan's body, like a child having gone to sleep. No wonder you've been my blood infant for so many years. You're so much better than some sword spirit. With you controlling the sacred weapon, I can rest easy, ha ha ha. Chuckling, Zhuo Fan's hand flashed, and a dozen sacred stones appeared, bringing them to his stomach. Though this sacred weapon needs sacred stones to replenish. Eat up, little guy, eat up and grow strong. Whoosh tilde. The sacred stones vanished, and when he looked inside, he noticed Blood Infant had taken them. Zhuo Fan chuckled, with so many sacred stones in me, I hope I won't get kidney stones, ha ha ha. Wait, with so many sacred stones around, why the hell am I forking them out of my purse? Looking at the ground, it was now littered with sacred stones from all the shaking. He sighed, I'm so stupid. No harm was done since he would just take these pickings, which would be all the same. Zhuo Fan had no shame whatsoever. But then he noticed his still bleeding right hand and frowned, returning Dragon's roar. Roar. Following the roar, his hand was covered in a flash of green, filled with life, yet the Chilean arm was still wounded like before. Startled, Zhuo Fan frowned. Is it that the Chilean arm can't be healed, or maybe the wounds from a sacred weapon can't be healed? Since this was his first injury to the Chilean arm, Zhuo Fan was a little unsure. Never mind, I'll just let it recover with time. After so many years, I ended up bloody wounded in action. I best keep this under wraps, or my actions here will be revealed. Holding some bandage, he wrapped it tight around his arm. Then he let his sleeve hide it before he went deeper into the cave. In the end, his main objective was to investigate the array. He wouldn't be at ease going back with just a sacred weapon. This is the place where the sacred mine is sealed. The cave couldn't be dug any further since it must have hit a wall. Touching the end of the tunnel, Zhuo Fan pondered. He noticed light flowing along the wall, like some kind of barrier, covered in all kinds of symbols. His eyes widened. I knew it. The one who set this array up must be a master. It's so ingenious I can't find the slightest weakness. It's as if. Zhuo Fan narrowed his eyes. It is just like Lightning Canyon's who trapped Soaring Chiline. It can't be the same person or expert that set it up, right? That would mean this was another remnant of an emperor. Just what on earth happened in the mortal domain in the past? Why would such an expert leave his mark here? Even with the 9 Serenity's secret records, breaking through this ingenious array was impossible. As he only got to enter the Lightning Canyon because Soaring Chiline used its life to make a hole. As for the other 2 forbidden zones, he wouldn't get in even if he risked his life. Their arrays were intact. Forget about even getting in touch with those sacred beasts, not when he couldn't open the door. Chapter 663, As You Should Have. Chapter 663, As You Should Have. Proofreader, Papatonks. Tracing his fingers over the wall, Zhuo Fan was mulling over something. Then he opened his eyes wide, and 2 golden halos flashed in his right. Divine Eye of the Void's 2nd stage, Void Annihilation. Bam! The spatial power struck the wall loudly. Then it was over. The barrier didn't even shake, though it did flash a bit after, as if to mock Zhuo Fan that he was all bark and no bite. Zhuo Fan sighed. This array is ridiculously strong. Not even Void Annihilation, specialized in breaking arrays, can do a thing to it. He would never get it open as he was now, a mere ant against the world. My only choice is to wait until after I go beyond the mortal domain to try again. Zhuo Fan gave up the search and was about to return to the valley. However, he made sure to spruce this place up with how messy it was, and so, without further ado, he picked the walls clean of any and all sacred stones by using shift. Now and then, Zhuo Fan popped all over the mountain as he avoided the hundreds of monitoring arrays. All he left behind was now a bare, dark cave, like he was some thief who couldn't get enough. It was a good thing the exalted double dragons didn't see him, or they'd be spitting blood right about now. Those sacred stones were tens of times the reward the double dragon gathering offered the 9 sects this time. It took 1,000 years to form, and yet they were gone just like that. May you rot in hell, Zhuo Fan. How fortunate indeed. The 2 exalted were oblivious. Of course, Zhuo Fan could never let them know, though his wounded right arm was a giveaway. Zhuo Fan frowned and held it close. It was its first wound, and he was a little worried. In the last few fights he had, no one could even scratch it, so coming out wounded all of a sudden would definitely attract the exalted's gazes. That'll be bad for sure. Squinting, Zhuo Fan was pondering on a solution. Whoosh! An hour later, Zhuo Fan reappeared in the valley. Alas, gone was the natural beauty and lush scenery, now covered in ever-flowing blood that gave it a nasty stench. One should not forget the constant symphony of wails and cackles that accompanied such a view. It brought this work of art to life. Bang tilde. Don't hit me, please. I give. Just let me go. Damn you. Now you know when to surrender. What were you doing before then? Where'd your arrogance go? What about yesterday's cockiness? Hi, if I don't set you straighter than an arrow now, then I'm no demon scheming sect's disciple. Kuei Lang's laughter echoed through the valley, filled with the promise of brutality. Zhuo Fan looked around, and he saw punches and kicks raining down on one helpless victim. Gui Hu, Kuei Lang, and the rest were dishing out all the beatings they could, like a master lashing out at his servant. As for the one who wailed beneath their feet, that was Ren Song Yue, and the girls stood aside with a thick, loathing gaze on their faces. When they noticed Zhuo Fan, they bowed. Steward Zhuo, welcome back. Did you get the prick? Zhuo Fan asked. The girls turned to the others and nodded. Bai Lian bowed a bit as she reported, Steward Zhuo, Heaven Trailing Sect's disciples have all been killed, except Ren Song. Based on his status, we can't kill him. So we captured him, sealed his cultivation, and let the others thrash him until now. As you should have. Ren Song can't be killed, or it will force Heaven Trailing Sect to desperate action. Zhuo Fan nodded, then he showed a nasty smile, though that doesn't mean we shouldn't put him in his rightful place. Since he liked showing off yesterday, let's show him how it's truly done. By the way, how come you aren't enjoying the kicking festival along with those guys? The three girls blushed and fell silent. Zhuo Fan paused, but then he noticed something. Ha ha ha, I get it. A lady is to be reserved and shouldn't lower herself to such barbaric and vile actions. But as someone treading the demonic path, you should learn to let go. Come, let's kick him a couple of rounds. It'll make us feel better. Zhuo Fan waved as he strutted over. But the girls still hung their heads in the same spot. This isn't like you at all. Zhuo Fan looked back with an odd gaze, especially you, Yu Ling. When you were the boss of the labor office, you were more arrogant than ever. Why the sudden shyness over kicking someone? Steward Zhuo, it's better if you see for yourself. Yu Ling blushed harder and pointed at the crowd. Zhuo Fan was intrigued now. Going over, he looked from behind the kicking frenzy. Ahem, brothers, please make way. Allow me to join. Steward Zhuo is back. Make way. Steward Zhuo wants to let off steam. Kuei Lang looked back, and his eyes lit up when he saw Zhuo Fan. The others moved away with bright smiles, letting Zhuo Fan have his fun. Now the scene was revealed in all its glory to him that had him stumped. He gave an odd look to the rest, especially those shy ladies. Now he got the gist of their reluctance. Rendsong was nothing more than a curled-up ball of bruises and wounds, twitching and even whimpering. That wasn't the least of it, though. He was stripped of clothes, and blood was also gathering underneath him. Zhuo Fan couldn't help sneering at them. You should know not to take it too far in your games. You even stripped him naked. He is, after all, the young master of the Heaven Trailing Sect. Doing this in front of thousands of people, he won't have the shame to get out of his room. That's just what I wanted. I bet he won't be able to get out of his home even back at his sect. Kuei Lang snickered. He pointed at the blood under Rendsong and followed the trail of blood. Look, Steward Zhuo. Zhuo Fan did look and was speechless before crying out, you sure have unique tastes. He gave them a funny look, then gave a loathing handshake. Next time, don't talk to me. I am not a sicko but a perfectly normal human being. No wonder even Yu Ling, with her nasty temper, stood behind. You guys just aren't normal. The three girls from afar shook and covered their ears, trying anything to stop hearing his words. The curled-up Rendsong twitched on cue, and his sobbing increased. Kuei Lang's face twitched. Steward Zhuo, who do you take us for? We're not sick, at least not to that degree. Didn't we vent for you? The prick had gone overboard yesterday, so we used a club too. Kuei Lang lifted a bloody wooden stick. Zhuo Fan hurriedly held his nose and jumped back a couple of steps. He glared at them in disgust. Put that away, you filthy animals. Animals, animals, Wu Tilda. Rendsong shook as he cried. For the first time ever, he agreed with Zhuo Fan, giving him a long look. Zhuo Fan shook his head, sympathizing with him. Then he turned to Kuei Lang and the others, barking, you're the ones who've gone overboard. Ever heard the saying, death before Dishonor? The guys were stumped. They did not get Zhuo Fan. Didn't they do what he asked? Why was he angry? Rendsong lifted his wretched and crying face and gave Zhuo Fan a strange look. Was he the rescuer among this band of scumbags? However, Zhuo Fan's next line made his mouth twitch. Couldn't you have just gotten rid of the flesh and taken around with his soul? That kind of pain is the most exquisite. Moreover, it's far less nasty and messy. I should have known that all vile demons are the same. Rendsong thought with a plop. The club fell to the ground. Zhuo Fan spoke with deep loathing. The others were stumped for a moment, then cackled. That's the Steward Zhuo we know. Even if left alive, it won't do without scarring him good. You're the best team leader ever. Kuei Lang snickered and patted his chest. Rest assured, sir. We shall have no compassion, no shred of sympathy, and will be sure to make him pay. Thrashing him was going too easy on him. It's just that you said we should take our sweet time, so there's plenty of stuff we haven't yet tried. Ha ha ha. I told you to take your time so you could buy me time. It wasn't so you could turn him into your punching bag. Then again, the result ain't half bad. Recalling his haul, Zhuo Fan grinned. Then he looked at the shivering mess on the ground, afraid the act was about to resume, and Zhuo Fan shook his head. This beating will leave a deep trauma in Ren Song's psyche. He's done for. Well, not my fault he had to prance in my face. Hold on. Zhuo Fan squinted suddenly. Then he looked at his right hand. Chapter 664, Respect. Chapter 664, Respect. Proofreader, Papatonks. All right. Brothers, get rid of his body, and let's have a go with his soul. One last push, and we're done for today. Gui, who looked at everyone. He got Zhuo Fan's implied meaning and acted accordingly with a nod. Everyone returned to Ren Song with a sinister smile. Ren Song was so scared he was shaking like a leaf. However, with a spatial ripple as the only sign, a white pillar sprouted in front of everyone. At the same time, an aged voice echoed, "All right, kids, that's enough playing around. The 6 hours are up. The team battle between Demon Scheming Sect and Heaven Trailing Sect is over." Over? Isn't it too fast? Kuei Lang looked baffled. We still haven't destroyed this prick's body. How come it's over when we're just getting started? The others' interest fell at this point since the time was up. Zhuo Fan snickered at Ren Song's scarlet but added, "Good things never last long. Now that the time is up, we must abide by Double Dragon Gathering's rules and stop. When it's all said and done, Brother Ren, you are still the young master of the Heaven Trailing Sect, the head of the Tianyu's 3 guardian sects. We're rivals on the battlefield but friends outside of it. Friendships come first and rivalry second. Do you think you can make it back, or do you need me to get someone to help you?" Hypocrite. Every face in the audience twitched, scoffing at him. On the inside they bore witness to the true essence of a demonic cultivator, cruel to no end and a hypocrite to the core. And Zhuo Fan seemed to be the culmination of all evil. Ren Song's face sank, silently taking out a shirt from his ring to put it on. Then he barely got his feet under him. He clenched his ass cheeks as he wiggled towards the saving light, soon vanishing. Looking at each other, Zhuo Fan and Kuei Lang laughed at his expense. The girls only blushed harder and glared at them with a shake of their heads. Zhuo Fan's gang followed into the light right after. Their vision shifted from the mountains to the Double Dragon Manor's arena, yet the welcoming committee was not in the least bit happy, showering them in scornful looks rather than applauses. The team battle between Demon Scheming Sect and Heaven Trailing Sect was not as intense as the crowd hoped. Instead, it was completely one-sided. And at Zhuo Fan's behest, it devolved even more into a sick chase for torture and pain. No, a sick game is more accurate. Because Heaven Trailing Sect's people weren't killed but toyed with instead. If one could still call it that, this fight was nothing more than a show of Demon Scheming Sect's endless capacity for brutality and savagery. Heaven Trailing Sect's young master Ren Song would have gone through even more cruelty if not for that title shielding him from death. Not like this outcome was any better. Shuddering, Ren Song, with Elder Chi's support, stood opposite of Demon Scheming Sect's team. But his head was still lowered, fear having twisted his character from an overly proud man to the shell he was now. He was unable even to look his torturers in the eye. Elder Chi saw his young master's appearance and gnashed his teeth in hatred, glaring at those demons not like Zhuo Fan and company ever cared. They still bore that twisted smile from before. "Bring it, if you dare." The judge's cold eyes swept both sides as he spoke. In this team battle between Demon Scheming Sect and Heaven Trailing Sect, the former had sent in 10 people and 10 returned, while the latter had sent 10 and only 1 returned, a battle won by an absolute margin. Demon Scheming Sect, do you wish to keep challenging? Your next opponent is the second place in the middle 3 sects, Demon Soul Sect. Damn right we are. Zhuo Fan blurted out without even thinking. Judged had expected this kind of answer and continued, "Then you are free to decide whether it will be right now or after a rest of 3 days. We didn't even break a sweat. We fight now, of course." Zhuo Fan snickered. The judge nodded and turned to Demon Soul Sect. "Do you accept the challenge? If you don't, it will automatically declare Demon Scheming Sect as the winner and you the loser." Han Yunfeng squinted in thought. Zhuo Fan paused, giving him a long look. "Didn't he say he'll give up earlier? Why the hesitation? We accept." However, at this moment, Demon Soul Sect suddenly decided to fight. Turning to Zhuo Fan, Han Yunfeng was filled with battle intent. "The best choice is not to fight, but it will only leave us with regret. But don't think for a second you can humiliate us as you did to Heaven Trailing Sect. Demon Soul Sect is filled with battle demons. We'll rather die than be shamed. Humph, we'll just see about that. Lucier snorted in contempt but was stopped by Zhuofan. Zhuofan gave him a long look and nodded. Good, but you better come prepared. We're not ones to go easy. Humph, we don't need your pity. Han Yunfeng scoffed. Zhuofan's nasty grin resurfaced. Turning to his team, Demon Soul Sect is unlike the Heaven Trailing Sect. They won't balk under fear. We can't mess around with them and have to take them seriously. But they only have 2 ethereal stage experts. Why so serious? Kuei Lang paused and gave the opponent an odd stare. Zhuofan smiled. Look at their eyes, and you'll see they have made peace with death. You might want to have fun, but they are serious. They won't let it go your way. That is why it's better to face them head-on and give them proper respect. They have come to the gathering fully aware that they might never return and are ready to go all out if they do, the true spirit of a cultivator. They are nothing like kicking around some wastrels. We need to act according to our opponents. Some are to be toyed with while others should be shown respect. Startled, the gang turned in Demon Soul Sect's direction. Sure enough, although they were around the level of the Heaven Trailing Sect, they were determined to see this fight through, one way or the other. Despite witnessing how they trashed Heaven Trailing Sect, they still showed no fear. They really must be taken seriously. Kuei Lang took a deep breath and nodded. His face was solemn. Looking at them, they were suddenly reminded of themselves from before. If not for Zhuofan bumping their strength, they would probably be at the level of Demon Soul Sect and could only throw their measly lives away in this double dragon gathering. They all let out a sigh of lament. The judge turned from one team to another. Disciples, please enter the Sumeru dimension. The second challenge of the middle 3 sects challenge round begins. Zhuofan led his team towards the gateway. Han Yunfeng followed as well. Whether intentionally or not, Zhuofan paused for Han Yunfeng's team to catch up. Just like that, the two walked abreast, entering the valley simultaneously. The prick sure has his charm, not always an insufferable bastard. Wu Qingqiu couldn't help but smile. Yang Mo's eyes shook at the side, and he had to nod. Indeed, Demon Scheming Sect is at its peak, and he should be brash and wild. But when he entered the valley, he chose to wait for Han Yunfeng to catch up and go in at the same time. It is a sign of respect. That is true. Respect me, and I shall do the same. Insult me, and I'll make you pay 1,000 times over. It seems to me the fact that he drove Demon Scheming Sect into butchering Heaven Trailing Sect is justifiable. But all we saw in that battle was Demon Scheming Sect's cruelty and not Heaven Trailing Sect's arrogance. That is why we all labeled the Demon Scheming Sect's men as thugs. This is why demon cultivators earned their bad name. Ha ha ha. What a world. Eyeing him, Yang Mo nodded. Who'd have thought a righteous disciple would know the toils of us demonic cultivators? Ha ha ha. It's because I'm a righteous cultivator that I need to have tolerance. Demonic cultivators are paranoid yet not necessarily wrong. I will not be prejudiced. Wu Qingqiu chuckled and said to Yang Mo, by the way, I don't find this Zhuofan that unreasonable. Just that he acts differently depending on the people and situations, while also a bit heavy-handed. You said he almost got you killed. How did you manage to piss him off? Well, it's none of your business. Yang Mo turned red and shifted his head away. Wu Qingqiu snickered at his reaction. Demonic cultivators love to make a scene, are narrow-minded, and must have what they want. Therefore when the two of them meet, sparks fly. Sigh. While righteous cultivators love to don the mask of hypocrisy. That should level things out, right? Wu Qingqiu shook his head at this thought. Demons are frank and irritable, while the just are fake and calm. Though who can tell who is the demon and who is just? Meanwhile, when the two teams entered the valley, they stood across from each other. Zhuofan jumped and landed behind his team. Han Yunfeng and the others frowned. Zhuofan, however, smiled. I'll say it again, who can get on my level? Pass all 9 of them. Then you can face me. Han Yunfeng's eyelid twitched, and he stared at Zhuofan furiously. Chapter 665, Round Robin. Chapter 665, Round Robin. Proofreader, Papatonks. That's odd. How come the prick is up to his old tricks and won't fight this time either? Wu Qingqiu's side was puzzled as they watched Shuofan. Hadn't he always treated Demon Soul sect with respect? Why the acting? Why the antagonistic display? By not fighting in a team battle, he clearly looked down on them, holding them in contempt. His action was a hard and cold slap to Han Yunfeng's team's face. Leaving the slapping aside, why lift their hopes just now only to knock them down again? Just what is that prick thinking? They would never have guessed that it wasn't that Shuofan did not want to fight. It was because he couldn't. His right hand got hurt from the brief encounter with the sacred sword. If misfortune had it that he exposed it, the exalted double dragons would see it, and he'd be finished. As for his left, it was nowhere near that strong. Favoring his weak left instead of that strong right would incur the same suspicion, so the best way to avoid it all was to show off and stay out of it. If Demon Soul Sect had just forfeited and let me fight Sword God Sects when Dao straight out, then with his strength similar to a superior 3 sects disciple, it would fit my plan perfectly. Then I wouldn't have to hide from anyone and not be so passive. But just what the hell got into Demon Soul Sect all of a sudden? While I do admire their guts, they're just too weak. I can't fake it with these weaklings. It'll only get seen through. The only choice is staying still. Scratched his nose, Shuofan sighed inwardly. Han Yunfeng witnessed his action and was fuming mad, gnashing his teeth in hatred. What the hell's the meaning of this? I get you look down on us, but did you have to do it in front of everyone? Won't you even give us a few moves? Since you're so stuck up, what's with the show of respect from before in walking side by side? Are you toying with us? Han Yunfeng glared and said, Shuofan, I will make you fight. Humph, to fight our steward Shuo, you'll have to go through me first. Qi Changlong stood in Han Yunfeng's way. This is a team battle, but we won't take advantage of your weakness and we'll go one-on-one. If you have what it takes to beat our 6 ethereal stage experts, then there will be no one to stop you from fighting Steward Shuo. What, a round robin of 1 against 6? Third young master Han cursed, you have no shame at all. My brother is in the 2nd layer of the ethereal stage, while just 3 of you are in the 3rd layer. Why not ask him to stand still so you can beat him? Quiet, brother. Han Yunfeng cut off the 3rd young master Han's rant. If it's a team battle, with only 2 ethereal stage experts, they could have 2 of theirs hold us back while the rest would kill our teammates. Then it will turn into 6 versus 2. How long do you think we will hold on then? 3rd young master Han paused, then let out a long sigh. Han Yunfeng's eyelid twitched and said, that's why this round robin looks like 1 against 6. The fights will never be one-on-one. This is in our favor. I accept. Great, then let's go. Qi Changlong walked forward, giving Shuofan a look from beyond the others. Han Yunfeng's eyes narrowed. His body shook, and with a reverberating roar, a blue hundreds of meters tall winged lion appeared in a flash of light. With its appearance, the temperature dropped sharply, and a biting wind formed that chilled one to the bone. The crowd cried out, that's Han Yunfeng's soul? At once, the audience was boiling. Everyone knew the soul was an ethereal stage expert's strongest weapon, but also its weakness. So unless they had no choice, the fight was to the death, or they did not fear a heavy injury, the average man would not take it out, since if the soul was finished, so were you. So even in the middle 3 sects round, the audience had not once seen ethereal stage experts taking out their souls. Even when Ren Tsung was being pummeled from all around, he would rather have his cultivation sealed than show his soul in fear of having it crushed. No one imagined that in the 2nd stage of the middle 3 sects challenge round, Han Yunfeng would actually lay his soul bare at the very start. He was ready to go all out. Elder brother, his younger brothers cried in panic. Han Yunfeng waved them not to worry, his face hard. They are all tough opponents. I have to go all out from the start, or if the time drags out, it will work against me. Ha ha ha, what a brave man you are, eldest young master of Demon Soul Sect. Then allow me to accompany you with my own soul. Qi Changlong laughed and felt as if he had met a kindred spirit. His body shook, and yellow light spilled from him in a blink. A huge seal of 60 meters appeared overhead, giving an oppressive feeling. Wu Qingqiu's brow shook, and he cried, it's actually a rarely seen tool soul, the seal of upheaval. Correct. Souls are commonly divided into beast souls, elemental souls, and domain souls. As for this tool soul, despite being rare, it is on the same level as a beast soul. And Han Yunfeng's soul is that of ascending howling lion. Of bitter cold and extreme yin, the opposite of the seal's extreme yang. This makes it that the match will be decided on the strength of their souls. Yang Mo nodded as he analyzed. Yi Lin looked from the side, bored. It's Han Yunfeng's win. Why? Startled, the two turned to him. Reason dictated it should be Qi Changlong who won since he had the higher cultivation. Yi Lin huffed, because he stakes his life. Bam! The loud sound came just as Yi Lin finished. Ascending howling lion and the seal of upheaval clashed in a terrifying rumble. However, in that short exchange, the seal of upheaval had 5 claw marks, with ice spreading around them. Qi Changlong shook all over and spat blood. At the same time, he took back his soul. He cupped his hands in admiration. Respect. You're too kind. Han Yunfeng returned his gesture even as his brow was soaked. Should this be his victory? He was, in fact, the more injured party of the two. Zhuo Fan's brow shook, and he admired Han Yunfeng. The kid is a damn feisty guy. He's unlike those fake young masters from sects and even staked his life on the first attack. His upbringing must have had a heavy role to play in it. Demon Soul sect is remarkable. Wu Qingqiu's brow shook as well. How can there be a fight like this in this day and age? As the forefathers say, pride comes before the fall. Even in a life and death struggle, one holds back some energy just in case, to change the tides and win or escape. But this guy had put up all he had and more, cutting off all his paths. If he couldn't have shaken off his opponent in the first strike, he would have been dead by now. The guy is ruthless. He is staking his life just for the chance to fight him. How can you guys even understand him? Yi Lin mocked. He has to fight 6 people, even in rounds. Even if he comes out victorious, he will be exhausted to death. The only way to save energy is to go out in full force. While he gives his life in every exchange, his opponent doesn't have the nerve to meet him. This leaves him with a margin to win and conserve his strength. But even so, one cannot say just how much energy he'd have left in the end. By the way, Yang Mo, you said you wanted to spar with senior brother. But do you have the courage and thirst as he does? Yi Lin asked Yang Mo. Yang Mo's brow shook as he watched the next fight. This time Bai Lian went forth only to be defeated in one strike. But even though he saw Han Yunfeng panting, Yang Mo shook his head with no admiration for the man. This guy is consumed with cultivation. Doesn't the demonic path contain obsession as well? This is the road he is walking. Huff tilde. Despite having only struck twice in the valley, Han Yunfeng was breathing heavily, his head soaked in sweat. His brothers rushed over to help him. Brother, are you all right? Let's just forget it. They're making it hard for you and toy with you. With the way you are now, what's the point of defeating the 6 of them when you won't be able to even stand? This is pointless. With a slight twitch of his eyebrows, Han Yunfeng slowly looked at Zhuo Fan, only to see his solemn face and bland look. As if he looked down on him. Taking risks despite knowing it would fail was useless. But when Wen Dao's words came to him, that cultivation meant going against the natural order. If he lost this chance to fight the strongest, he would feel regret for the rest of his days. Han Yunfeng once again straightened his back and took a deep breath as he stared at Zhuo Fan. Even if you do not put me in your eyes, mine will always be on you. My cultivation will never stop. Yes, that's the way, demonic young master. Wen Dao spoke as he witnessed the fights. This fight isn't to defeat him but to prove you fear no challenge. This is the only way you can go further. Xie Tianshang, next to him, looked at Han Yunfeng and then at Zhuo Fan. He nodded just like when he set Zhuo Fan as his rival. It wasn't to surpass him per se, but for himself to never stop pushing forward. Chapter 666, Soul Burst. Chapter 666, Soul Burst. Proofreader, Papatonks. Young Master Han, your next opponent shall be me. I won't be like the 2 you faced and won't hold back at all. Please be ready. Lu Xie walked before Han Yunfeng with a leisurely gait, bearing a twisted smile glaring at him lightly. Han Yunfeng said, I know. These days have shown me that you are the foulest person of all demon scheming sect. Ha ha ha. You're asking for it. Lu Xie's face fell, a bone-chilling bloodthirst flashing in his eyes. Then his body shook, and a huge green spider appeared in front. The green gas it released spread along the ground like a poisonous net. Han Yunfeng's brow shook and turned serious. He'd seen Lu Xie use this move before, with mystical heaven sect, to cut the enemy off from all directions. In other words, Lu Xie planned on surrounding him instead of attacking him head-on. To finish in one move in this way, he became passive, making his plan to save energy fail here. He was sure this would become a stalling battle to wear him out. Instead, if it were just a single fight, this wouldn't matter. But in a round-robin, he could not let this happen. Qi Changlong couldn't help but sigh. Why is Lu Xie doing this? For young Master Han to fight all 6 of us is incredibly brave. Even if we are not exactly honorable, there's no reason to take it so far. You know as well his character. It's obvious one strike can win this. It's easy to win or give him a pass, but he would rather toy with him. Bai Lian scoffed, he plans on dragging this on, something Han Yunfeng could never accept. Qi Changlong sighed and shook his head. Meanwhile, Han Yunfeng looked around the spreading poison, and with a roar, the ascending howling lion flapped its wings. The fierce gale slammed into the ground, turning the area around him into sparkling blue ice crystals. It was then that the spreading poison stopped. The moment the green gas touched the crystals, it would stop in its tracks. Han Yunfeng shouted, and ascending howling lion shot for the green spider, going all out once more. Humph, useless. I'm not going to take you head on. Lu Xie snickered and made a sign. The green spider scattered like before into thick mist. The thousands upon thousands of tiny spiders raced for Han Yunfeng under the cover of the mist. Whoosh tilde. Ascending howling lion's strike hit nothing, but it turned back and went straight for Lu Xie. Ignoring the incoming flood of spiders, he actually opted to go down with his enemy. Han Yunfeng is truly ruthless. Meeting someone like Lu Xie, who wants to exhaust him, he instead stakes his life, going all out. Wu Qingqiu sighed. Yang Mo nodded, the kid's obsessed, and I like it. I hope to see him in the double dragon manner. For a person from middle 3 sects and just a second layer of ethereal stage as well, it will be hard to enter double dragon manner. It's all up to the exalted. Yang Mo and Wu Qingqiu turned to the highest seats in the audience, where the exalted sat. Lu Xie looked at the lion with a smug grin. Ha ha ha, the more anxious you are to end this, the more you'll tire. Lu Xie made another sign, and lines of green flashed all over the lion. Just like a net, those lines connected and trapped it at the same time. The green pattern on the ground released green smoke, connecting to the net roar. With a mighty roar, the lion found it could not advance at all, stuck in place grinning. Lu Xie gave Han Yunfeng a cocky look. Young Master Han, it's your bad luck to have met me. Do you know how a spider feeds? It traps its prey in a web, letting it struggle and beg for death, then slowly eats it alive. This is quite a lengthy process too. You were rash for a quick battle, but then you got me. Hi hi hi. Humph, that remains to be seen if your net is that tough. Han Yunfeng made a sign as his brow sweated harder. The lion roared as it struggled, and it trembled uncaring about the lion's actions. Lu Xie grinned, poison explosion. Boom tilde. The lion's body kept popping with great bangs sounding through the air. Han Yunfeng shook with every blow and even coughed up crimson blood. Brother. Third young Master Han and second young Master Han cried out in panic. The flying lion was Han Yunfeng's soul. Its wounds meant Han Yunfeng's soul wounds. It was such a heavy and sharp pain few could endure. The two gnashed their teeth and looked at Lu Xie in hatred, but Lu Xie only laughed. Young Master Han, you're Demon Soul Sect's eldest young master, so I can't take your life, but you should know when to give. It's time for you to admit your defeat to me. This is as far as you go. Han Yunfeng was Demon Soul Sect's young sect leader, and defeating him would give him great merit back at the sect. Lu Xie was blinded by greed, so he did not follow in Qi Changlong and Bai Lian's footsteps in fighting head-on. Victory and merit were worth more than anything. He would be willing to do anything as long as it would help his ascent. Han Yunfeng's face twitched in pain, but he actually mocked Lu Xie. Kid, you're not worthy. We'll just see about that. Lu Xie's face fell, and his sign changed. The thousands of tiny spiders charged for Han Yunfeng, but they froze in place when they touched the blue curtain of light. Just then, Lu Xie shouted, and the tiny spiders exploded, breaking through the blue curtain and allowing the spiders behind them to advance. Han Yunfeng was now at his most dangerous. With a string of constant explosions, the barrier of light shrank more and more until it was gone. Lu Xie trapped his flying lion, and explosions also assaulted it. He was stuck, unable to neither attack nor defend. Han Yunfeng's face was heavy, feeling the sharp pain stinging his soul. He paled, and Lu Xie grinned as he changed his signs. The spiders drew nearer with every step, every second, and with them, Lu Xie's web closed around him. Everyone, including the audience, was at the edge of their seats for Han Yunfeng's fate. Third young master Han shouted, "Brother, just give up. You defeated 2 experts and are weary. It's no loss even if you concede. This isn't about reputation, but whether I can walk further on the path of cultivation." Han Yunfeng's eyelids shook, looking in Zhuofan's direction. His eyes flashed and roared as his aura exploded once more. "Brother." His brothers cried out in worry. "What's he up to?" Wu Qingqiu was startled, having a bad feeling. Soul burst. Han Yunfeng made a sign. The trapped flying lion wailed in pain and then exploded. Streams of blue light shot in all directions like a tidal wave everywhere, and everything froze under a layer of blue crystals. Those spiders were about to explode again, but they froze immediately before shattering to dust. Lu Xie spat blood, looking at the light show slowly diminishing. Followed by a roar, a lion without wings burst out and came for him. The sudden impact caught Lu Xie off guard, knocking him flying, trailing blood behind him. This was not as light as before, with just his soul a little bit shaken up. This time his entire innards were crushed, and there was a high chance his body was ruined. However, the people did not care about him, not even demon scheming sect's members. In their eyes, there was a lion that had lost its wings, and despite its thinned state, it held its pride as it lay on the ground. Chapter 667, Man on the Path. Chapter 667, Man on the Path. Proofreader, Papatonks. Young Master Han, why did you do that? Watching the weak and frail lion lying on the ground since it struck Lu Xie, when Dao shook his head, "If I had known you were so obstinate, I wouldn't have said what I had. Seeing you fall in such a plight feels like I harmed you myself." Xie Tianshang's eyes shook as he stared at the scene for a long time before sighing. "I had spent my life only on martial arts, yet not even that can compare to Han Yunfeng's accomplishment. Soul burst, a desperate and last move to injure your opponent by exploding your soul. Unless it is the last resort, no one would ever use it, not when the recovery is painstakingly difficult." Even though Han Yunfeng had blown up his soul's wings, the damage to his soul is heavy and has also crippled his future. Putting the cart before the horse, Yang Mo watched from above with a sullen look. He was angry, but not at the result, and more about his inability to fight. Didn't he challenge Zhuofan so he could go further down the path of cultivation? Now that his soul is crippled, what was the point? Wu Qingqiu nodded, lamenting at the pity. Only Yi Lin disdained, looking at the lion in admiration. "What do you, ignorant youngsters, know? The soul is important, but the damage isn't permanent, just somewhat annoying. If my guess is right, Double Dragon Mana, Zhuofan, and even me can all heal him. But the step he had taken today shall carry him for miles. The road of cultivation is fraught with obstacles. If one knows every effort was useless and stopped, that is as far as he went. But he has achieved his goal just because he chose to stake his life in this matter despite the obvious outcome. Even if he didn't get to fight with Zhuofan, his heart has grown to new bound." The two squinted, watching Yi Lin in shock. "Are soul wounds that meager anyone can heal? Double Dragon Mana, I get it, since they're the top in Western lands, but even you and Zhuofan are such miracle workers." Yi Lin noticed their gazes but said nothing. Tap tilde. As the dust cleared, Han Yunfeng dragged his even more weary body, looking with a pale face at the bloody Lu Xie on the ground. "I won. This is the third match." Lu Xie gnashed his teeth and found he could not get up. All that was left was the regret in his eyes. He would never have imagined Han Yunfeng would go to such extremes. "I just said I didn't want your life, so why did you have to go as far as wound your soul to win? Lunatic, you're a true madman." At Lu Xie's unreconciled face, Han Yunfeng grinned, then he turned to Demon Scheming Sect, the next challenger. "Brother," his two younger brothers shook, wanting to dissuade him. But seeing his determined look, They gave up. They knew that once their big brother was serious about something, there was no changing his mind. Demon scheming sect's team's hearts shook and looked from the frail lion to the weary Han Yunfeng. They held him in much more respect than before. Han Yunfeng would never achieve his goal, yet he fought regardless of the futility of his efforts. It was this determination that won them over. It wasn't just them. The entire audience was filled with respect. Gui, who walked forward, "It's my turn. Please instruct me." "Good, begin." Han Yunfeng strained to keep his body upright as he shouted. His lion also struggled to stand, roaring toward Gui, who, despite how exhausted he was, his battle spirit never waned. Gui, who said nothing as he walked to Han Yunfeng. Second young Master Han was tense, worried about his big brother's fate. Han Yunfeng fixed him in his eyes. He knew well that there was no way he could fight an ethereal stage expert in the state he was in, but what amazed him was that Gui, who had no killing intent, as if he was only walking over. Han Yunfeng frowned and snapped, "What's the meaning of this? Are you saying you can take me with just a finger?" Gui, who did not reply. As he reached him, under the watch of thousands of pairs of eyes, Gui, who took Han Yunfeng's fist, struck his own chest with it 3 times, and then walked away. Startled, Han Yunfeng was stumped. The audience was baffled at this time. Kuei Lang laughed as he came over, copying Gui, who by hitting his chest with Han Yunfeng's fist for 3 punches. "My turn, eh?" Kuei Lang swaggered off. "Hey, what's the meaning of this?" Han Yunfeng asked. Yu Ling smirked and came over. "What's so hard to understand? You just beat them, so the next one took their place. Aren't you challenging 6 ethereal stage experts? I'm the last one. Wait, you're..." Han Yunfeng had a weird taste in his mouth. "Stop whining. It's just your fist, Yu Ling got before him and was about to do the same, but then she realized something. She looked at her perky chest and blushed, then waved. "Never mind. I'm the weakest of the 6. Since you beat the rest, I'll just admit defeat." Yu Ling left with a wave as she gracefully walked away. Han Yunfeng was left stumped, his heart filled with complex emotions. "Gui, who? What the hell are you guys playing at?" Zhuo Fan chuckled. Gui, who shrugged. "Steward Zhuo, you saw it yourself. I took 3 fists of his and lost." Yep, me too." Kuei Lang bobbed his head. Zhuo Fan shook his head. 3 fists to the chest. "Are you guys swearing an oath of brotherhood here? Since you all admit defeat, it seems I'll have to step in." Zhuo Fan stepped lightly, coming before Han Yunfeng. His eyes lit up with battle intent. "I've waited so long for this. Ha ha ha, I always keep my word. Since you reached me, you have the right to hang out. Go ahead." Zhuo Fan smiled. Han Yunfeng cupped his hands in glee and began weaving signs. Seeing their big brother shine again, the 2 younger brothers were filled with pride. They also sent grateful looks to Gui, Hu and the others. "Thank you, brothers. Just showing our respect is all. Since your brother wants to fight Steward Zhuo with such passion, the least we can do is help out a little." Gui, whose gang hit their chest in reply. However, just then, there was a light hum and a flash of light. The judge's aged voice came from outside. "The 6 hours are up. Both sides cease fighting and come out. If you fight again, I'll consider it a grudge fight." "What?" Han Yunfeng shook and was unwilling. "How can it be so fast?" Then his eyes went dark and collapsed. Zhuo Fan's right sprung into action. But then he moved it back and used the left one instead to hold him steady. "Brother Han, we'll fight next time." Han Yunfeng shuddered and turned his white face to Zhuo Fan. "You'll still fight me?" "Of course, this is my promise. Since this time we can't, there's always next time." Zhuo Fan spoke with determination. Han Yunfeng's perked into a smile and his eyes closed. He was out cold. His soul, the lion, also vanished back into his body. Holding Han Yunfeng's body, Zhuo Fan was the first to go through the light. The 2 sects teams exchanged glances and followed after. Only Lu Xie, in his heavily wounded state, had to be carried out by Qi Changlong. Whoosh tilde. The teams were back in the arena and were welcomed by a resounding round of applauses. Unlike the first challenge against Heaven Trailing Sect, the Demon Scheming Sect still held their absolute advantage, but they had a complete attitude change. Instead of abusing their opponent, they showed respect, bar a particular someone, of course. This led to everyone having a whole new respect for Demon Scheming Sect. After looking at both sects, The judge coughed for silence and was about to announce the results when Zhuofan stepped forward. Elder, 10 people went into Sumeru dimension, and 10 have returned. Both sides have one seriously injured member. It should be a draw. Well, the judge was taken aback and nodded. Since you are willing to step back, I will help you. This challenge is a draw. This statement left the crowd in shock, all looking at Zhuofan. Reason dictated that Demon Scheming Sect held the ultimate advantage and was the real winner. But Zhuofan was willing to give up victory and give his opponent the greatest respect in an instant. The people were in awe of Zhuofan's style, and the Han brothers appreciated him too. Exalted He Ran, up above, nodded. The brat is walking the path, a true rarity. Few demonic cultivators have ever risen above their demonic nature. True. However, it's not just him. Ha 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 has also grown. Ha ha ha, exalted by my chuckled and added another name to the list in 3 strong characters. Chapter 668, Hand in the Shadow. Chapter 668, Hand in the Shadow. Proofreader, Papatonks. With dusk approaching, the judge declared today's fight over. The middle 3 sects challenge round had been going on for a long time, with each stage taking 6 hours each. The next challenge stage shall be held tomorrow. The judge ended with a bitter look in Zhuofan's direction as if to say, "It's all your fault, you punk, for wasting our time." A whole day was wasted with just 6 single matches and 1 team battle in this yet unfinished middle 3 sects challenge round. Now you need 2 days for just 3 rounds. Why do you take your sweet time with it every time you're involved? First was the lower 3 sects round, now the middle 3 sects challenge round. Do you enjoy playing that much? Can't you go on a bit faster so I can lay to rest these weary bones a bit earlier? Zhuofan chuckled as if he knew what he was thinking. But then he turned his head away and rolled his eyes like it was not his problem. The judge sighed and shook his head. Just how on earth did such an obnoxious freak come from the tiny demon scheming sect, a lower 3 sect? After everyone dispersed, Zhuofan handed Han Yunfeng over to Demon Soul Sect with the promise that he would also heal his injuries before leaving. The Demon Soul Sect still doubted that such a heavy injury could even be healed. The guy isn't trying to dupe us, is he? Then again, tricking them wouldn't earn him anything. Their elder brother's wound was self-inflicted as he insisted on going on with the challenge. The Double Dragon Gathering used to be a cruel and bloody event. The fact they didn't wipe us out is already fortunate. What more could we ask? Therefore, Demon Soul Sect's team looked at the frail Han Yunfeng, thinking of his future bumpy path ahead of him, and sighed, the best talent in our sect, ruined just like that. Middle 3 sects, middle 3 sects. Meanwhile, Fiend Yang took his team back, shouting all the time, filled with joy and bliss from the achievement. Fiend Yang then felt like crying. Curses, it was freaking hard too. Thinking back on our team in the last Double Dragon Gathering, of the 10 of us, only 4 returned home. I never thought this time our disciples would come back in one piece and even earn us a middle 3 sect position. It feels like I'm still dreaming. I'm so damn happy. Humph, how can it ever compare to now? Fiend Yin sneered. Double Dragon Gathering requires a team of 10 to participate. Back then, most of those candidates were just replacements for the elders, and venerables stuck their candidates in to earn them some merits. They weren't worth a damn on the stage. Unlike this time, where we only had 10, each is an elite by himself. Especially Zhuofan, who is worth 100. Thinking of the team battle, he alone could finish them all off, ha ha ha. Slapping Zhuofan's shoulder hard, Fiend Yin laughed, but Zhuofan kept frowning and cursing on the inside. Hey, watch the hand, my right's still healing. Though he didn't say it, putting on a twitching smile and nodding. Fiend Gui praised as well. Here, on this Double Dragon Gathering, Zhuofan had earned the biggest credit. Without him, the disciples wouldn't have the strength to even fight. They wouldn't have what it takes to raise our sect's name. We even have the middle 3 sects and superior 3 sects coming to watch us. So when we return, the first thing we do is to reward Zhuofan. He is the future pillar of our demon scheming sect, ha ha ha. You're talking nonsense. Isn't it obvious by now? Fiend Yang sneered. Our position in the middle 3 sects is secured, and we even challenged 2 middle 3 sects. Even if it's just team battles, it will certainly not drag us back when it comes to the final score. Speaking of drag, I'm still annoyed that damn mystical heaven sect played us. Alright, it's all in the past now. Our objective is how to keep challenging. Fiend Yin interrupted him. Fiend Yang gave a heavy nod, turning serious. The previous challenges were nothing to speak of, just small fries, while the next 4 sects are the real deal. Especially the top of middle 3 sects, the Sword God sect. Their strength is very close to a superior 3 sects. We must tread carefully. Venerable sirs, sorry to interrupt. However, just as they were getting to the crux of it, a faint voice broke their focus. Before we discuss the fighting tomorrow, could you perhaps heal me first? I feel my body is failing me. Whoosh. Startled, the fiends turned around and saw Lucier's weary look, lying on the ground with a miserable face like he was on his deathbed. Fiend Yang's face twitched as he cursed, "You have the cheek to ask for help? What kind of brain do you have crammed in there to do what you did? You went as far as pushing the hard-headed Han Yunfeng to risk his life. Just look at Kuei Lang and the others. They know a hero when they see one. Their actions have spurred the public's respect for us and given Demon Scheming Sect a new look. While all you managed to do is get both of you on the deathbed, no one spares a look to you. You were seriously asking for it. Let me tell you, even if you did manage to beat him, it wouldn't have been of any worth. You'd only be reviled. Thanks to Zhuo Fan's final intervention, he patched up your mess. By the way, why would you even go so hard in blocking him anyway? Did you think he could have beaten Zhuo Fan? It's fine. He just couldn't help it and got his punishment." Fiend Yang still wanted to go on, but Zhuo Fan stopped him with a smile. Kuei Lang and the other are the same as Han Yunfeng. They have potential, which resonated with him, unlike the petty Lucier, who squabbles over petty affairs and can never understand such bravery. Just leave him be. At the end of it all, he's one of ours and shouldn't bother him. Fiend Yang huffed and shook his head. Zhuo Fan, I'm not talking about his character, but his brains. Originally, the demonic path wasn't popular, but now that we're a middle 3 sect, we may even get an entire empire for ourselves. The Double Dragon Gathering is the best chance to show off our mettle. But with his behavior, won't he scare off our potential funders? We may be a demonic sect, but we still have principles, unlike those rogue demonic cultivators. Here. We collect protection fees while those rogues only know to rob homes. Ha ha ha. Zhuo Fan chuckled. Lucier didn't like what he heard. Then back with Heaven Trailing Sect, Steward Zhuo asking us to toy with them isn't just as vile? For God's sake, here I am, taking your side, and you just had to make me look bad. He emphasized it with 2 kicks and grumbling. I did it on purpose. Everything was for power and grace. Since we wanted people to see us have virtues, we had to also show them we're no pushovers. This will help future deals go much easier in our favor. It's called preemptive strike, got it? Hear that? Steward Zhuo is a brilliant man, not something a pig-headed guy like you could ever measure up to. You'll only make a fool of yourself. Fiend Yang cursed at the side, then turned to Zhuo Fan. Sigh, we better teach this kid well, or who knows what trouble he might stir. No worries, I'll first heal him then teach him. Hey, Zhuo Fan snickered as he dragged Lucier into his room. The rest looked on and chuckled. Bam. In the room, Zhuo Fan threw Lucier on the bed, closed the door shut, then his face fell. Lucier, what was that just now? Were you about to spill the beans about Han Yunfeng as well? Steward Zhuo, I just don't understand why you suddenly sent me a message to stall Han Yunfeng as much as I could. Why then do you now? Lucier spoke fearfully. Zhuo Fan squinted and held his right hand. You did well when you stalled him, but if you dare say any word of this, I'd never. Lucier waved frantically. You'd better. Now stop asking questions. Zhuo Fan huffed and presented a vial in a flash of light. He threw it over. Take this. Don't come out in 3 days, you'll be back in shape. You don't have to join tomorrow's challenge. Just heal up. Zhuo Fan then walked out and slammed the door closed behind him. Lucier bobbed his head. But when Zhuo Fan was gone, he gnashed his teeth. He stared at the door with bitter resentment. Damn you, Zhuo Fan. You're the one working from the shadows, and while I take the fall, you take the glory. You get the merit, and I get the can. Just you wait. This is far from over. Lucier turned to the vial Juefan threw and opened it after a moment of thought. This is just the interest of what you owe me. Juefan just left Lucier's room and then looked around. He returned to his room and took off his shirt. Looking at his right hand, still bleeding, he gritted his teeth and frowned. Damn that fiend Yin, he's like a bull. But what's with this healing rate? Just a little touch, and it's already opened up again. It's all thanks to Lucier's stalling, or my wound would have been exposed the minute I fought. Squinting, Juefan snickered to himself like a little weasel after his plan worked perfectly. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.